I have a motion to enter into public session. Mr. Tamio, second by Mrs. Weiss. All in favor? 5-0. Would you please stand for the pledge? Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of March 21st? Mrs. Manuelito, second by Mrs. Weiss. All in favor? 5-0. I believe we have Mrs. Piero here tonight to discuss the Elwood Education Endowment grants that are going to be given.
Good evening. I want to thank Dr. Bossert, the members of the board, and the members of the administration for allowing us the opportunity to recognize the 2018-2019 EEE grant recipients. This year, we received grant applications totaling over $90,000. We did have a successful year of fundraising, thanks to our members and the support of the community, but we were still unable to fund all the applications we received. I want to take a minute to thank the members of the EEE Grant Committee for their hard work and dedication in maintaining the integrity of the grant evaluation process. It is very difficult. The Grant Committee members use special criteria and scoring rubric to evaluate each of the grants. The names of the applicants are unknown, and this ensures a fair and unbiased review of all the applications. And again, we received a lot of applications this year, and we really were blown away by the ideas that the teachers have put forth. This year, we're going to be donating almost $37,000 to fund 9 grants. They will benefit all 4 of the buildings in the school district. The programs that will be implemented as a result of the grants will enhance art, health and wellness, life skills, science, and STEM curriculums, as well as expand the district's flexible learning spaces. Since its inception, the EEE has donated over $500,000 to the Elwood School District. I invite each recipient to come forward as I provide a brief summary of their grant award.
And I'd like to first express my appreciation to the EEE for the continual and constant support for our programs and the wonderful opportunities that are added to our instructional program really do help to create some wonderful learning environments and achievements for our students. So I thank you so much for your efforts. I thank the grant writers and recipients for taking the time to really pursue initiatives that will bring such benefit to our students. I thank the principals who are here, both those who are present and not, for helping work through and approve the grant applications to make sure they're partnering with the faculty. And I also would like to mention that Assemblyman Steve Stern has created certificates of merit for each of our grant recipients tonight, and regrets they could not be here to personally present them, but sends along his congratulatory remarks.
The first grant is titled Introducing Robotics at Harley, and it is from Krista Albrecht. This grant will introduce Harley students to robotics through the addition of the Dash and Dot robots in the Harley Avenue makerspace. The robots will be used to reinforce skills students are learning in the classroom and allow them to test their creativity. The robots will raise the level of engagement and excitement during lessons and will also introduce students to the concept of coding and the field of computer science.
Have you not seen Mrs. Albrecht? Okay, we'll certainly round of applause for Krista.
The second grant is adding robotics to the high school computer science curriculum, and that one is from Brittany Chalmers. This grant will place Edison robots in the high school computer science classes. The addition will place Elwood at the forefront of this innovative area while sparking student interest in the field. Edison robots will allow students to explore how robotics can be used to solve problems in a variety of settings, from businesses to home.
Very nice.
The next grant is constructing a flexible learning environment to foster true engagement and collaboration in the high school classrooms, Ms. Geiser, Ms. Kennedy, and Ms. Smith. Furniture and accessories will allow the high school teachers to create calm and comfortable, effective classrooms that support individual and group work. A new flexible seating environment will include reading nooks, activity tables, and sofa configurations, as well as traditional desks. Students will be able to select the learning environment they're most comfortable with. Additionally, the setup will provide a welcoming space for teacher and student conferences and group work. The next grant is for the middle school. It's establishing colorful organization in the art classrooms by Ms. Grady and Ms. Lindenbaum. This grant will provide items necessary to organize the EMS art room supplies through the use of color-coded carts and bins that will reside next to each table. This will maximize the students' time on task, so they will not be out and about looking for supplies, and they will be able to stay at their desks and do what they need to do. The next grant is expanding the EMS and high school science department with Vernier probes, with the Vernier probe initiative by Richard Greeley. Additional Vernier Lab Quest 2 probes and sensors will allow the high school and middle school living environment students, as well as AP Bio students, to conduct investigations outside of the classroom. Examples of such experiments are groundwater and soil contamination analysis, renewable energy exploration, and soil contamination. These sensors and probes will help place Elwood students ahead of the curve as we move toward the next generation science standards. Our next grant actually affects all 4 schools. It is conserving the biodiversity of Long Island's native plant population through the restoration of the high school greenhouse by Eileen Kelly Gorman. This grant will restore the old greenhouse at the high school and will benefit the 4 schools. At the high school, ecology classes, AP Environmental Science, and Living Environment students will be able to study the function of a greenhouse as well as the importance of growing plants native to the region. In an effort to conserve the biodiversity of plant populations native to Long Island, native plant gardens will also be established at our other 3 schools. Creating a learning garden at Boyd. That one is from Kathleen Marinelli. This grant will provide the tools and supplies necessary to create a learning garden at Boyd. The students will grow their own food, cook, and learn healthy eating practices. Math and language arts skills will be worked on through the garden activities, whether it's reading ingredients necessary for a recipe or measuring out what is needed. Additionally, the food grown will be used in the Boyd cafeteria and donated to local shelters. Our next grant is for Boyd. It's Teaching Life Skills Through Cooking by Kathleen Marinelli and Lisa Rosenthal. Kitchen essentials, including small appliances and utensils, will enhance the Boyd Life Skills curriculum. Students will work on everyday practical skills while augmenting language development, math ability, and scientific concepts. The items provided by this grant will allow students access to hands-on learning through cooking. The grant will also enhance the curriculum of the life skills classes by allowing students additional opportunities to work on social skills and personal care development. And our last grant for this year is by Mr. Schiraldi. It is enhancing the health and wellness curriculum at the high school. This grant will add a Bracco advanced functional training system to the high school fitness facility. The strength training equipment will enhance the physical and adaptive PE programs, and it can also be used by rehabbing athletes and for PT and OT sessions. Once again, we were really truly impressed by all the grants, and if we had the funds, we would have been thrilled to fund them all. I want to congratulate this year's recipients, and remind you that our Evening for Education that is coming up is one of only 2 fundraisers we do every year. This year it is at the Pavilion at Sunken Meadow, and it will be on Friday, May 17th, and you can purchase tickets online. Thank you.
I think the best bet would be to get on the stage real quick. Someone's going to have you make 2 lines up against the gold curtain back there. Tell us in the back or in the front.
So as they're lining up, I just want to thank the Elwood Education Endowment for their continued dedication to the district. Very familiar faces, a lot of years on the committee, hard work, a lot of time, and I want to congratulate the teachers for actually going above and beyond and applying for the grant. So thank you so much, ladies. Okay, now I'd like to invite Ms. Annie Song up for an update.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Street, I neglected to inform you that Annie was not available tonight.
Oh, okay.
But we have been kept very well abreast of the wonderful goings-on both at John Glenn High School and throughout the district. And I instead decided to steal some of her time to report to the board and community about a wonderful opportunity I had yesterday at John Glenn, where we assembled a select group, or a diverse group of 25 graduating seniors. And we did basically an exit interview customer satisfaction survey. This is something that I like to do several times during the year, and I've done with each of the classes since my arrival at the assistance of Ms. Brzezinski and the guidance department at Glenn. And they were really very altruistic. You know, they talk about what their experiences have been, highlights of what they feel our program was for them, K-12, areas where they feel perhaps we should place some additional focus, some additions to the program that they would like to see for future classes. And it's really so refreshing because the advice that they're giving, the guidance that they're providing, will not impact them in any way. But what they're seeking to do is to make our program even better for the students that will remain with us and will benefit from their experiences and insights. And one of the things that just came up during conversation while we were eating pizza and being social is they started to talk about the decisions they were making about the colleges they'll be attending next year. And I have to tell you, John Glenn is going to be represented in some of the more prestigious learning environments in the country next year. And I'm not sure that they're ready to formally make those announcements. You know, some have already talked about, you know, finalizing their plans at MIT and Carnegie Mellon and Villanova and some very prestigious places. But we're also aware of some students who have been accepted to some very familiar names in very exclusive territory. And when those decisions become finalized, we will really join them in celebrating just remarkable achievements. But we have students who will be leaving us for some amazing institutions. We have some students who are considering entering workforce. We have some students considering military service. But they are all focused on a path that they think is the best fit for them and all were very reflective about how they feel very well prepared for those challenges because of their experience in Elwood. So it really was a very meaningful dialogue and one that I appreciated having. So I decided to share that in case of Andy's typical.
And Dr. Besser, I want to thank you for having those meetings with the seniors because they really appreciate it. My daughter, I know, used to sit in on some of them and always came home and said, he really asked our opinion. He really listened. So I appreciate meeting with the students. It really means a lot to them.
I appreciate that, and I will share that the building principal does the very same. Mrs. Brzezinski also has, how do you refer to your advisory committee over there?
SPAC, but the Student Principal Advisory Committee, yes.
So some is overlap, children who serve on both, but others are just getting more students involved in that feedback with administration. So, you know, in a business, you do customer satisfaction surveys, you do exit interviews, so this is that. It's that model. And the students are just very transparent and very candid and really insightful about guidance to give. So it really is a great opportunity over at Thank you.
So back to you.
So what was not nearly as good as my lunchtime with the seniors is this was the week where we administered the required New York State assessments in grades 3 through 8. If you've been following Newsday or any other media outlet, you're well aware that the computer-based testing, which by the way, Sunday's Newsday with the cover photo, was an Elwood Middle School student. We saw from elbows down, so I can't confirm which student it was, but it was an Elwood student on the cover of Newsday talking about this wonderful transition that the state is making to computer-based testing, which is to expedite the process, to work collaboratively with districts that are moving to computer-based testing, one-to-one Chromebook initiatives. We are kind of at the head of that line, but there are many districts moving in this direction, and the state is moving in a direction where all testing will likely become electronic and mandatory in that fashion in the coming years, both the 3-day assessments, and we would expect regional exams and things of that nature as well. So we thought it would be a wonderful strategy to continue paper and pencil at Boyd while we still could. So testing went smoothly. Yesterday and today at Boyd, I will tell you that when the state made the move to unlimited testing time, I thought there was some flawed logic. The rationale for moving to untimed tests is so that students would not feel pressured to work quickly within that 90-minute or 60-minute time frame that they were once given. But I think the unanticipated consequence is that we now have students who get so overly involved in wanting perfection on their assessment that while the testing began at 8:30 this morning at Boyd in grades 3, 4, and 5, it did not conclude until 2 o'clock. There were a good number of students, and we gave them breaks, and we made sure they had lunch, so some of that was break and downtime. But there were some students that were handed a test booklet at 8:30 in the morning and voluntarily submitted it at 2 p.m. And that for me is trouble. So I think the unlimited time had one intention, but an unintended consequence. And when I was at Boyd at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and in a classroom with 15 fourth graders that were still being tested, I was not pleased. And I don't think it's reflective of the type of assessment that is best designed for our students. And I thank the State Education Department for recognizing that. And we anticipate changes to the testing program beginning next year. And we have a member of the advisory committee in our district, Dr. Toscano, serves in that capacity, who will help to make some targeted and focusing change in the elementary testing program. Here at the middle school, if you are a middle school parent, you've received a number of calls from Dr. Sapienza this week, and you'll get another one next week. We were supposed to be testing yesterday and today. On Tuesday, when the testing window opened, we said we're probably going to stay away from day one and see how it goes. Well, it didn't go well. The testing system managed by Questar crashed throughout the state. There were stories of students completing the test and not being able to submit it. It was stories about students being halfway through the assessment and it freezing, and really just students not being able to log on. It was really just filled with technical glitches. So much so that the state, as I'm sure you read in Newsday, I saw in News 12, said suspend testing for Wednesday. Today, testing resumed for For those schools scheduled to give computer-based testing in 5th grade or 8th grade, we again stayed away and decided to wait and see. And the reports from the field about grades 5 and 8 today were far more positive, that those glitches and those freezes had been resolved. So we will restructure and reschedule our computer-based testing in this building. We'll test all grade levels, 6 through 8, on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week for those students who will indeed be taking the test. When we're in an environment when parents have questions about the testing program and then errors like this occur, it further deteriorates that trust that we're trying to establish and the value that we're trying to demonstrate in what once was a valuable assessment program. 35% of students at Boyd were not tested. The parents have submitted refusal letters. For the computer-based testing at middle school, we're at about 40% right now, but I would expect that might grow a bit before Tuesday when we're re-administering the test. So I'm not sure how much value we can place in that data, and I'm also not sure in the validity of an assessment that takes a 10th grader 6 hours to complete. So I'm hopeful that next year's testing program is more reflective of some of the structural changes, some of the more focus on developmentally appropriate questioning, and that we can return to having the value of the test. I've made a commitment to the board and the community that when we can truly evaluate the tests and truly see the value, I will be the first one to stand up and please encourage parents to have their children be part of the assessment process. I was not able to do that this year, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it has not gone as it is designed. And we will continue to rely upon our local assessments and some of our multiple measures that we use to chart student progress. I'm confident we're doing that very effectively without the assistance of the next day assessment test. So I will get off my soapbox and we will continue with our state obligation next week. Any questions from the board on the assessments?
I have a question about the middle school. Now, you're going to be monitoring kids with this computer, doing computer testing. Suppose a kid, like something happens, are we going to be able to see that, or is that not going to happen until, like, there's a glitch, they do something wrong on the computer, or are they going to be able to notice that in day one, or while they're taking the test, or is that something that's not going to be reflected until we get their scores back? I'm just concerned about that.
My understanding of the technological glitch of Mrs. Weiss is that the screen was freezing. Students weren't able to continue, they weren't able to submit answers, so that we knew right away. But on the back end, it seems, even when the students got error messages saying your test was not submitted, it was. But it took someone with administrative rights to go into the portal and see that the test had indeed been submitted, but the user wouldn't know that. So there was a lot of glitches like that. But the commissioner got in front of it and took full, forgive the word, blame for what had occurred. When you work with a third-party vendor, as the state has elected to, like Questar, you count on everything working. Unfortunately, it did not. And the commissioner came out and said we will not have any students double tested. No student will be penalized if the assessment was somehow disrupted. And they gave lots of options and lots of alternatives on how to correct the problem. So we've decided to wait until the glitches have been resolved and a good percentage of those using computer-based testing have already completed their testing. Now, considering we have 40% of our students not being tested, we will be testing just over 300 children. In Elwood, that's the entire middle school minus the refusals. In other districts, that's a singular grade, or half a singular grade. So we did a wonderful test of our network where we had every student, grade 6 through 8, log into a portal and it accessed the Wi-Fi at the exact same time and really put as much traffic on our to test our bandwidth as possible. It was a successful test. So now when you subtract at least 40% of the students and you somewhat stagger the time they're going to be logging in, we're confident that we are technologically ready. It's just a matter of Questar receives our technology.
And up until what point can a parent opt out or choose this?
We respect the wishes of any parent. We are confident they are making recommendations that they feel in the best interest of their child. we like that notice in advance so we can plan accordingly, you can send in a refusal letter up to the day of the test being given. Once the test is administered and begin, it is scored. So if a child starts a test, they receive a score. Whether they take day 1 and then refuse day 2, they will be scored.
So only on day one.
So it needs to be submitted prior to the testing beginning. So we've been very communicative with the community. For those of you that have received Dr. Sapienza's calls, I think she does a great job, animated, clear, concise, and she'll be making more next week. So she's ready for Broadway at this point. Any other questions?
No,
Mrs. Marcus?
just a brief one, because I agree that an unlimited time policy, not policy, but practice was kind of short-sighted by the people that cried for it years ago. But what is our practice with the unlimited time for these tests? How do teachers encourage one way or another, or do we set a limit, or is there a conversation with students?
We can't set a limit as far as taking the test away from them. The student has to voluntarily say they're complete. But what we have done, and some of the teachers here have been involved directly with it, we encourage children to take a breath, close the book, take a breath, take a minute, take a stretch. And with the duration of some of the students looking at their test booklets there, we made them take a break and eat lunch and go outside and then come back in and finish their assessment.
But it's always the student's choice. So they could leave it incomplete if they wanted to.
They could say, I have done enough, yes. Any other questions about the assessment? I'm hopeful for a smoother year next year, but this year was not. This year was not. So the value of the data that we'll receive back from the test, I'm not sure that will be in. That happy note. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
You're still on.
Get off my soapbox. Mrs. Hull, actually, Dr. Hull actually does have a happy note. Dr. Hull, would you like to share your community read initiative?
Good evening. I'd just like to mention that we are inviting all of our community members and our faculty and staff to join us in a community book read. We are reading 10 Mindful Minutes. It's a book that describes an introduction to mindfulness as something that is brain-based and can help students and adults with managing stress, with having tools for concentration. It's a book written by Goldie Hawn, co-written with Wendy Holden, and it's the backbone of a program known as Mind Up, which again is a brain-based program that teaches mindfulness tools for students. And we are trying some of the Mind Up lessons at Harley and Lloyd and at Elwood Middle School. So anyone who is invited to read the book, we have some extra copies here, and the public library, the Elwood Public Library, has some extra copies. And we'll be discussing the book on April 29th at their curriculum conversation evening. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Hull, and I certainly hope that we have a number of community members that accept your invitation, because I think it's a valuable addition to our overall investigation program. There is one other item under the superintendent's report for the board. We have drafted a Board of Education meeting schedule for the 1920 school year. You received it. We always create a draft for your review, so you can check your personal calendars and your other obligations. And this is not a board action item. We're not looking for a vote tonight. But if there are any noticeable conflicts that the board would like to raise or discuss, the district clerk will note conflict.
Ms. Marcus.
I have a conflict for next July 6, 2020. I will be out of town. I plan to run for another 3 years on the board. That would be my election year. That would be my signing-in ceremony, which I missed last time because the calendar would not be changed, which is fine. It wasn't part of the discussion. But if we could bump that 1 week out, I would appreciate it.
Noted.
Any other comments or concerns from the board?
I just notated that I will not be in the country on the 13th of February, but I forwarded that to you.
Okay, and much like this year, when we add the board dates to the calendar, obviously sometimes changes need to be made, but it's at the discretion of the board. Yeah.
I just wanted you to clarify that because I know one of the dates is a very busy time of the year.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Weiss. The reason why we ask for this information to be publicized as soon as possible is because it's the first entries we make on the district activities calendar. And then when our outside groups, our PTAs, our booster clubs, and other outside groups look to put events on the calendar, we black out any conflicts with board meetings. So we want the board meetings in place first, so everybody else has to work around those nights. We try to minimize any other activity in the district so that people are available to attend our meetings. Okay. Board committee updates were provided to the board in written form and memo form. We did that in the interest of time, but in transparency, most of these issues have been discussed at public meeting. So unless the board had any specific questions about what you provided regarding the technology committee or safety committee, these reports are available for public view on board docs, and we will simply accept them.
Questions, comments?
Thank you very much for the hard work of the committees.
Okay. Okay, so we're up to our first resident remarks, and I'm sure there will be some. What I'd like to say is we'll open these resident remarks, but if your comments or your questions have anything to do about the budget, we're going to have that budget presentation now and first. So if you could hold off, I'm going to open up another resident remarks after the presentation. So if you have, a lot of your questions might be answered during the presentation. So if you could just hold the budget questions, and I'll open it up right after that in case you have any questions or comments about that. So the board encourages all residents to attend its meetings. This section of the agenda affords them the opportunity to speak. Persons wishing to speak should identify themselves in any organization they represent at the meeting. Comments related to district business or an agenda item should be kept as brief as possible, may not exceed 3 minutes. Questions or comments concerning matters which are not on the agenda will be taken under consideration and may be discontinued by the president. Public discussion of matters relating to staff, students, or others at which their reputations, privacy, or right to due process could in some way be violated is prohibited. Any questions or any resident remarks, if you could step up to the microphone and introduce yourself and any organization that you represent. Okay, seeing none, let's go right to our budget workshop presentation, which is
as most of the conversation involving the development of the 1920 budget involves programmatic changes, I am going to take the lead on presenting the information to the board and the community. Ms. Dunkel has obviously been integral in making sure the numbers are accurate and work, but the descriptions that go along with the programs and staffing, I think is best something for me to convey, so I can answer any questions that the board and the community may have. And clearly Dr. Holland and Ms. Dunkel have been very supportive throughout this process, as has our entire administrative team and our other stakeholders. So, we'll begin. Down arrow. Thank you. So we remain with our primary goal remaining consistent. We want to continue the standard of excellence and diversity of programs that our students expect and deserve. I've said this several times, but I think I need to convey it even more strongly. We are not facing a fiscal crisis in Elwood. We have a challenge that we have created ways to overcome that maintains the excellence of our program. We've done that through maximizing efficiencies, which we'll detail a little further, focus on reducing items but not eliminating them whenever possible, and also collaboration with stakeholders. You will note that since our last presentation of the budget, there have been changes. We've heard from members of the community, we've heard from members of the board, and other stakeholders that have made adjustments to our spending plan based upon those recommendations from stakeholders. And we'll continue to do that as necessary. It's important to note, and I know the board is clear, but it's important for the community to note that what we're asking the board to adopt tonight is a total dollar figure. And that total dollar figure represents the maximum levy that we can ask the community to support within the tax levy cap. We have received all other information necessary to finalize the budget, our final state aid allocations, our other revenue sources, and we have calculated the maximum tax levy cap. So all that the board is charged with doing tonight is adopting a final number and the property tax report card. We can continue to discuss the spending plan and make adjustments to the spending plan as necessary moving forward. We want to be, however, very transparent with both the board and the community, so the board and the community understands how that money is being spent and earmarked and allocated. So that is the purpose of tonight's dialogue.
Dr. Monster, there was a big number on Newsday this weekend. Can you speak to that just briefly?
Well, it's on the last slide, but if you want to...
oh, okay, sorry.
The big number that Newsday advertised was $1 billion increase to state aid. And I think the board is familiar with, the community is familiar with the many fiscal challenges New York State is facing. And New York State had to be very, very creative in finding new revenue sources. When the state fails to find additional ways to reduce expense, what they have to do is create new revenue sources. So when you see things like congestion taxing for traveling through the city and things like that, those are new revenue sources that the state has come up with, because New York State doesn't have any money. They collect money in taxes and new fees and things of that nature that we will all feel the impact of. But when we look at state aid allocations, the number that the New York State School Boards Association, New York State Council of School Superintendents, NYSUT, the Umbrella Teachers Association, when those organizations looked at what they felt a fair and appropriate increase to public education would be for the state of New York, the projected number was $2.2 billion at a minimum. So while $1 billion is a lot of money and presents as a lot of money, it is less than half of what was projected as necessary. Saying that, it's very hard to ask the state to further finance the largest section of expense within the state. Education receives the largest percentage of aid through the state of New York. And while other areas that are equally as important, healthcare and otherwise, are seeing a reduction in the aid they receive, to see $1 billion increase to education sounds like a wonderful thing, and it certainly reflects that our elected officials and our governor understand the priority of education in our state. So that's good. Unfortunately, proportionately, what that $1 billion was for the Elwood School District was $59,716. So when you see a headline of $1 billion, you think, wow, we must be rolling in riches, and whatever our $1 million gap was will easily be, made up by state aid. Our portion of that $1 billion was $59,716. Gene is giving me a cursor rather than a down arrow, so why don't we just click to the next slide? Thank you. So some folks ask why that is. And I really had to do a lot of investigation to figure out why it appears that Elwood continues to face fiscal challenges. Prior to my arrival, I know the district suffered through some very difficult times where very hard conversations had to happen and sacrifices were made across the board in order to present a budget that could be supported by the community. And very often, the discussion of what had to be taken out of the budget would rule the day. So we're looking at this. It's why don't we seem to get our fair share of the aid? And then I noticed this trend, and it tells a bit of a story. If you look at our enrollment 10 years ago in the 08-09 school district, you'll see that we had 2,613 students. Much like every district on Long Island, our enrollment is decreasing dramatically. This is a common trend within Long Island public schools. So if you look at our enrollment today, it's 2,077 students. So a near 600 student, 586 student decrease over a period of 10 years. But then look at the other column. In that 10-year period of time, the number of teachers, look at this year please, not projected, increased by 2. So we have 600 fewer students and 2 more teachers to service them. Unfortunately, that is not a sustainable pattern. Our aid that we receive is largely based upon the number of students we have. It's a per pupil allocation. So when we reduce the aid that we receive by nearly 20%, but it's not offset by decreases to expenses, that's where you find yourself in a bit of a problem. So while we're trying to make sure this budget maintains as many programs and services and extracurriculars for students as possible, one of the other things that we simply have to do is lower our baseline of reoccurring expenses. When you buy a lawnmower for the grounds crew, it's a one-time purchase. It's in the budget, it's out of the budget. When you have staffing, those are reoccurring expenses that are salaries, benefits, retirement contributions, and everything else associated with that. So if you look at our staffing numbers, and we hit a real high note in the 9-10 school year, but we really need to get back to a lower baseline so that when we have our budget discussions next year, we don't find ourselves in the same position with such a deficit as we did this year. So the recommendation projection that we'll walk the community and the board through tonight is a reduction of 7 full-time instructional staff members. This is just teaching staff. This is not reflective of support staff or other positions within the budget. But when we look at student contact, and we talk about decreasing by 600, but increasing in staffing, it's just not sustainable. And while I would love to have the flexibility and opportunity to add staff and introduce program, we simply can't finance it in this coming year. Next slide.
Dr. Fawcett,
Yes,
can I ask a quick question?
of course.
So, you know, with the increase in the teaching staff, does that have any correlation to the increase in our special, you know, our needs population, addressing that, and having maybe a specialty
100%.
report that we really need to, so it's not just a direct number, you know, we're going down, we should be reducing this now, we have to address a certain specialty, correct?
Yes, some growth of programs within the district have definitively, Mrs. Weiss, led to staffing increases, and that's a good thing. We want to keep more students in the district. We have some small classes running which kind of skew that data a bit. You're 100% right. We've also introduced some additional electives and some other support programs which make that number increase. Unfortunately, when the enrollment is declining, our aid decreases with it. So the money that we should expect to receive from the state will not be what it once was because of that reduction of 600. And as you see, when we're graduating classes of 180, 190, 200 students, and our kindergarten now is 125, we know this pattern will continue. We anticipate our enrollment will continue to decline, and it's in line with the rest of our region.
I have a question on that too, before you switch off topic. Does the state, in evaluating aid, look at enrollment with administration as well as a teaching staff? Is there a correlation in any of their student enrollment to administration?
Does the state evaluate?
Well, if aid is connected to our enrollment and we are looking at relieving some teachers, do they evaluate the amount of administration we have or no? Or is it just based on enrollment period?
Correct.
Okay.
So, this is not a doom and gloom conversation. What I wanted to really focus on in our budget is that we are maintaining a lot of the wonderful things that make Elwood the outstanding institution that it is. We are a Blue Ribbon Award-winning school district, and these are the things that help get us there. There are wonderful things happening here every day, K-12, in classrooms across the district. And I wanted to make sure we highlighted them, because while we do have to discuss some things that might be modified or changed or reduced, there are many wonderful things that we continue to support, and this budget will maintain. So we talk about the wide variety of AP and honors classes at the secondary level. We met the criteria for a Blue Ribbon school, of standards of excellence, of a high-achieving school. We are not taking away anything that would make us no longer a candidate for that award. We're maintaining all of those priorities at the high school that helped us receive that achievement. Academic support services in the form of AIS, we've placed heavy emphasis on this. You know, within the school day, being able to provide opportunities for students to help them meet their challenges. And we looked at a team approach at the high school. We added a math specialist in Harley. We increased student contact and AIS services at Boyd and at the middle school. All of that is being preserved. We looked at robust offerings in the visual arts, music, technology, coding, other 21st century initiatives. We want to make sure that there is something for all of our students to be able to connect with. The extracurricular activities, the clubs, the athletics, none of that is up for reduction. We will, again, look at student subscription in those areas, and if there is an undersubscribed team or club, it is a budget savings, but right now, the budget calls for any fully subscribed club to run, and any team. Special education services, we've discussed before, this is the fastest growing area of our budget. That is to meet student needs. We are not denying any student any service that they require to meet with success, whether it's an in-district placement or an out-of-district placement. These are non-negotiables. We do not look at expense, we do not look at cost when we make placements for students in special education. So we maintain all of those services. We are continuing strong support for our growing population of English language learners. While our enrollment is decreasing, we do see a greater influx of students where English is not their primary language, so we need to continue to support their needs. The expansion of the 9-period day at the middle school is a feature of the presentation that Dr. Sapienza and her team will be making. It has been so successful and so widely accepted as a preferred model that we needed to make sure we continue to finance the middle school in the manner in which it is working, so that's maintained. If you will. Sensory rooms, maker spaces, all these wonderful things, and some of these were help funded by donations and then supported by the budget, but we're maintaining those. These are wonderful new initiatives at the elementary level that continue to be supported in the budget. Safety, as you know, remains a primary concern. The hardening of our systems, the improvement of our technology, the careful implementation of the monies that we achieve through our SMART Fund. We're not looking to scale back anything that would impede the security and the safety of our students, which includes our mental health services. While we are shifting some of the funding within the budget for student support in mental health, and we'll speak in specifics in a slide or two, we are not decreasing services to students. We expanded the role of school counselors. We restructured the guidance department. The board received a very well crafted overview of the guidance program K-12 here at the last meeting. So we don't have to go too deeply in this slide, but we are maintaining all of those services. Varied professional development opportunities. It makes up a very small percentage of our budget, but we're seeking to keep those opportunities. And while we may have to deliver them a bit differently, we want to make sure we continue our race for excellence and our approach at lifelong learning. Vocational opportunities. Our partnership with Western Eastern BOCES have students who learn in off-campus activities to prepare for entry into the workforce or to complete their own skill set. Those opportunities are maintained within the budget. Our opportunities for dual enrollment. We have partnerships with local colleges and universities. There's no change to that within the budget proposal. Our one-to-one Chromebook expansion to the 11th grade. This is the year that we have targeted the expense, and it's a minimal expense offset by our reduction of textbook and consumable purchases, so it's a really minimal impact on the budget, and it makes full sense to continue with our Chromebook implementation, and we'll talk more about that after the budget cycle. And our continue to provide a 12-month academic program for special ed students as identified in our IEP. I think there were some mistaken takeaways from our last discussion on this item. There's a very small percentage of students who are recommended for a 12-month program through the CSE. And when they do have a 12-month program in our IEP, while we won't be providing those services in Elwood, we will be paying tuition for those students to attend summer programs in nearby districts that offer robust and appropriate services. So while we're not housing it, we are certainly continuing to provide those services to our students who require. Go back one slide, please. There is the caveat, however, that when we are not housing the summer program, we cannot use those services that were paid through special education dollars, transportation, nursing, support services, in order to fund the programs that were recently started for summer AIS, those 3-week periods for AS and ELL students. Without the piggybacking onto the special ed program, the budget does not provide the grant flexibility in order to continue the AIS and ENL. That's a positive, but has an associated negative associated with it. And I want to be transparent about that. So our total revenue within the budget, there is some adjustments later with the new aid, but we want it to be consistent for presentation purposes. The money we expect is $60,000, more than $62,669,000. The last slide has the update of what the board is going to be asked to adopt. So within a rollover budget, maintaining everything we have now, the deficit was, let's round off to $1.4 million. So the administration and the board is faced with what do we do to make up that gap. So here is the slides that begin to talk about what will be reduced or will be removed from the budget. And these are the unhappy conversations, because in an ideal world we'd like to maintain everything, but the realistic view must be we have $1.4 million to identify. So we looked at a lot of different areas. So I will just go through and provide explanations for the reductions. We recently added some part-time administrative support to the HR office. I think the community of the board is very familiar with the fact that HR responsibilities have traditionally, for the last number of years, fallen upon the superintendent of schools and the two assistants. We continue to be heavily involved in all matters of HR, but this year the board did approve the addition of a part-time HR administrator. Well, with the budget proposal, that part-time would become very part-time. Still supported. Tom Coletti is our part-time director of human resources. He's done a wonderful job. He's been a great addition, or he's been a wonderful new member of the team at district office, having left the assistant principal position at John Glenn, and he's really doing a wonderful job. But this budget reduction would make Mr. Coletti's position approximately 2 days a week. There was a lot of discussion at the last meeting about the calendar printing. While it is not a significant percentage of our budget, it is something that can be reduced because we've received some confirmation from some of our PTA and PTSA organizations that they would take on the expense of printing the calendar and then use that as a revenue stream for themselves, a fundraiser, as had been done in years past. The board was receptive to that idea. The community made a kind offer. So that enables us to remove an $8,700 expense for the printing and a $1,500 associated mailing expense. We looked further at some of the other district-wide reductions.
1 second, Dr. Vassar. Mr. Tony has a question.
Certainly.
Just a question, a comment, running the school calendar. Question one, I just want to make sure, I think it was informally discussed, the allocation for the senior community or residents who would like the calendar, since it won't be getting nailed down. I had asked for some data on our last year's budget, and so the age number from 20-year-olds to 50-year-olds made up 40% of the people who voted last year. The seniors, I don't want to call them seniors because it does categorize from the 50-year-old to the 60-plus era, and I won't call all seniors.
Really?
Sorry. Made up 28% of our budget, and I'm going to give some staggering numbers, and they're disappointing. There's definitely voter apathy here. We had in district 9,669 voters that are eligible to vote. We had 1,223 that voted, so 8,500 people did not vote in Elwood. But 28% of those voters do make up the demographic of 50 years old, 50 years older.
Seniors.
Seniors. And I don't know what it is with me in my days working at the diner, but I have a connection with the senior population of this community, and a good portion of them did enjoy the calendar and being in the loop of what was going on in the community, and they do vote and they're vocal. And I do want to throw out, given the staggering statistics of our voting population, there is that stigma that seniors vote down the budget. Well, 28% of them came out and we had a successful budget last year, so it's not so true that seniors vote down our budget. So I just want to make sure going forward we do have some stilts in place that will make sure that our senior community is engaged in this process, the students. I know in my grandma's district, they have like the senior ball or the senior citizens come and they have 50s music, and they kind of are including something. We do something similar with our theater production. This number sticks out that we do have a good portion of these residents, and they want to be involved. A lot of them have grandchildren in the district who are still very well involved in the community. Some are employees, some partake in events that take place. I just want to make sure that we are allocating some of the calendars to the senior population.
And I think Mr. Tomio's remarks reflect the fact that we heard from a number of members of our senior community who are very thankful and appreciative that they received a printed calendar now. And we did receive a good number of emails, phone calls, people who came to the microphone to say thank you very much for reinstating this. So I think what we'll do is work alongside our parent organizations who do take on the fundraiser to see if there's some flexibility in perhaps donating a number of calendars that we can earmark for members of our senior community.
I think, I didn't speak to some seniors of the community, and they understand the fiscal crunch that we're in, and they understand the reduction and the elimination of those. There's the opportunity to be able to obtain one. Even some are willing to pay the dollar amount, they just don't have the, the virtual backpack that goes home. And maybe we can do one of our newsletter if you guys are interested in. We'll have X amount in the district office or with the PTA to sell them so the seniors know. I think it would be well received.
And we might bring some to the community library, and we may bring some to the clubhouse in development next door, and we'll do our best to make sure that those who are appreciative of having that information have the opportunity to receive it moving forward. Absolutely. And yes, looking at the percentage of eligible voters that actually participate in voting is staggering. It is staggering. Back to where some of our reductions are coming from, we gave a charge to our administrative team to find reductions across the board in areas that would not impact our students or our programs, and we made some pretty large-scale reductions to equipment codes, repair codes, materials and supplies, textbooks and workbooks, contractual codes, which are things that we work with BOCES. The other BOCES is one tuition for the Long Island High School for the Performing Arts and the associated costs with that. We look at some of the, we were able to calculate more precisely what our necessary budgeted allocation would be for the employees' retirement system. We felt safe reducing that by $21,000. Termination pay for retirements, well, we didn't have very many this year. And forecasting for next year, that's another area where we felt comfortable making a budget reduction that won't have any impact on what we provide our students with. Another was a reduction of 7 on teacher assistant positions. This is a tricky one. But when we look at the manner in which we are delivering special education instruction, and we look at the way we are staffing the classrooms, in several of these cases, we're moving away from the classroom so that the staffing is no longer needed for it. And in other cases, we've seen some growth amongst our students, and the IEPs are changing, which reduces the number of teacher assistants we need. And lastly, there are some positions that were staffed by teacher assistants, but because of the model we're using, is actually be supported by teachers. So that all of that adds up across the board, K-12, to a reduction of 7 teacher assistants. And then we look more at the instructional program. And these are, again, some very difficult recommendations and decisions to make. And it required months of evaluating where our enrollment trends are, what class sizes we feel comfortable with. And again, I'm using the word comfortable, I'm not using the word ideal. And then we looked at some of the scheduling that's been done at the secondary level. We asked our high school specifically to really get ahead of making student tallies, starting to build schedules, starting to look at what the students' requests were so we can make more informed information about where our staffing would be needed. We did the same at the middle school, where there is some student choice involved, where the students have differing programs. We need to make sure we're staffing them correctly. Or at the elementary school, it's very cut and dry. Classes roll up by the number that they exist. It's far more detailed at the high school specifically, but at the secondary level, because a lot depends upon student choice. So we really can't finalize those decisions and those staffing allocations so we have a better sense of what it is the students are asking for. But what we have here is a reflected reduction of 2 elementary sections, and then percentages of our E&L position, our family consumer science, a math position, music position, world languages, and a lot of this is shifts to both our enrollment and changes we voluntarily made to our program, which we spoke about in more detail at the last meeting. And also the reduction of the special ed coordinator and the psychologist position. That's offset by, while we are recommending the reduction of a psychologist position, we are recommending an increase to the social working position. We've been able to really analyze the needs of the students within the buildings this year, and it's been determined that we have a greater need for that social worker position than the psychologist at this time. We will continue to evaluate that, but what we're asking the board to consider is not reducing the position, but shifting the economics from a psychologist role to a social working role, so that we would have 1 social worker per building in the district.
We're also not, while we're eliminating the secondary special ed coordinator, we're not eliminating both coordinators. There have been 2 full-time coordinators that report to Mrs. Wilkinson and help the chair committee and coordinate our special ed program. We'll be looking to restructure the elementary coordinator to go to K-8, and then assigning a specific coordinator to the high school, and using the existing high school staffing to take on those roles and responsibilities. Even though we're reducing the staffing, the work does not get reduced along with it. So it's reallocating those duties, responsibilities, and assignments to other staff members that we already have. So that was a maximizing efficiencies reduction. Dr. Hull can speak to some more of the intricacies of the point ones, the point sevens, the point fours, but we also do want to take the board and community through our slide on elementary class size. So are there any questions about the secondary reductions, the point 8, the point 1, the point 7? A lot of this is also reflected in Dr. Sapienza's review of the middle school. The shift in world languages, music, family, consumer science, and math are all part of the middle school program.
So that will be upcoming in Dr. Sapienza's presentation.
Okay, please.
Yeah, we'd like the music discussed.
We will be discussing the transition in the music program during Dr. Sapienza's presentation. And with regard to the other ones, the amount of E&L services that you offer is based on what level students are performing at. There are 5 levels. Our E&L population is evaluated every year. And as students move up in the levels, the amount of one-to-one contact or time where they're pulled out of the classroom is reduced. So currently, while our ELL population is growing, some of the students are performing well and they're reaching the upper levels of the scoring range, and so some of their services have decreased. And so that's where our potential savings comes in for this coming school year. And the family and consumer science is really just based on how we move our classes. We value the program, we know it offers a lot for our students. We're moving Naviance into our family and consumer science program at the middle school, but as our class sizes reduce, we need less specials. And so that is just something coming from the enrollment. Our math reduction is something that would have occurred this year in any case, because this past year we implemented enrichment programs in the middle school. We had coding in 7th grade and STEAM in 8th grade. As we've gone through the year and evaluated the programs, both very successful, students are learning a great deal and letting us know that they are enjoying the courses and that they're very beneficial. But we see that there's a lot of similarities between them. They're really both about problem solving and design, and many of our STEAM projects actually require coding. So it's a natural fit to combine those into 8th grade. And that opened a space in the schedule so we could bring music into the 7th grade day. If we were not going to be going with music, if we were doing some other type of activity, then we would have come forward with another new enrichment class in its place. But bringing music into the school day became the priority. And we will go further into the music. And also part of the shifting around is looking at world language, because right now we will be moving technology into 6th grade, into that enrichment period. And so world languages, this was the first year we tried a course called World Cultures. So that will be changed with technology, which helps us remain in compliance with middle level requirements for technology. Any questions with those?
Just have a comment. I'm a parent of a 6th grader, and so my daughter got to take the world language program, and as a parent, I found it incredibly valuable. I'll hear her, say the alphabet in a language, and I felt like it was real world brought home. So while I do understand as going forward, I do want to let you guys know I would be remiss to say that as a parent, I didn't really think it was a worthwhile.
Oh, yeah, I think we saw that for sure, and that's why it was introduced.
Yes, I did think it was worthwhile. Correct. On that, yes, and I totally get it. We have to maneuver and
a lot of this was
in compliance.
And a lot of it was coming with how we bring music into 7th and 8th grade. So then where do we move things to make sure we meet the middle level requirements?
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to review our elementary class sizes. This slide looks slightly different than last time. I just took out some of the text and gave the 2-year comparison so it's a little clearer. Ginger? So in the first column, because I know it might be a little hard to read, we have our current enrollment. So when we look at the enrollment, these are the students that are in our full-size classes. This is not including the students who are in life skills or in special class, because they're not making up the class average in the full-size class. So what we see, for example, this year, we have currently 120 kindergartners, and just so you're aware, we get weekly enrollment reports, and so this was updated. For example, we have 2 new entrants at the elementary level. So what we look at is the number of students, which gives us going into 6 sections, which is a class average of 20, and it just happens that, yes, that's exactly what we have. We have 20 students in all 6 sections of kindergarten right now. As we look at next year, we don't really yet know what our enrollment would be, but historical data tends to indicate that it would be consistent, so we're anticipating 6 sections, also around 20. Now, there has been a decline in enrollment, so it's possible that it will be smaller. When we look at our current first grade at 126, they're also in 6 sections, class average of 21. When we actually look at specifically how many children are in each of those 6 classes, the smallest class is at 20, the largest class is at 22. So for next year, as we bring our kindergartners up, the reason that number is up is because part of working with our students in special education and life skills and special class is that we work to help them move through the continuum of services and to come into an inclusion class setting. So as our annual reviews are going forward, we are hearing how many students will be entering into the general ed classroom or the inclusion setting. So we're adding those in. So we know currently we'll have 121, which will be a class average of 20.16. For our current second grade, they're at 136 right now in 6 sections, and the smallest class is 22, the largest is 23, and their average is 22.66. Again, as we bring our first graders up to second grade, I know again there's another student that will be joining our population in the general ed classroom, so that will bring our class average to 21.16, maintaining that 6 sections. Our current third grade is at 142. Did I say? And it's at 142 in 6 sections, class average of 23.6. Our smallest third grade right now is at 23, and our largest is at 25. We're going to have our second grade moving up to third grade, and we anticipate very similar size as they have this year, 6 sections of 22.66. In fourth grade, we currently have 151 students in 7 sections. This class went up to 7 this year because we were working with, that grade level has the largest population of ELL students, K through 12. And so, and it has resulted in students making good progress. And so our class average this year was at 21.57, the smallest was at 20, the largest is at 23. So as we look at the incoming fourth grade, we're moving up this group of third graders. We know there's another student joining a large class. So in 6 sections, they're at 23. So as we move this class up, we were removing a section. Again, this is a move that I anticipate would have occurred in any situation because they're in 6 sections at this class average and staying at that class average. Now, as our students go into looking at our current 5th grade, they're also at 151 and they're at 6. So you'll notice this enrollment is the same, but this group was 7 because that was a targeted program for this year. And the current 5th grade is in 6 section with a class average of 25.16. As students began the year, we did not have any classes at 27. There was currently 1 class at 27 that occurred 2 weeks ago. And that was made as a decision to replace a student because we always want to make the best choice for our students. And so we have a class as small as 24 and a class as large as 27. So if we had placed that student in a class of 24, we wouldn't have that number 27, but we were responding to student needs. So as we bring our students forward, I know there are students who are exiting life skills and special class joining us in inclusion, so we will be looking at 25.66. So in this case, we were restoring back to the prior of having 6 sections, which changes that class average. In 6th grade, there's currently 165 students in 7 sections. This is their class average. However, we have 2 different teams, and when you have an uneven number of teachers, you have an uneven number of teams. So you have the 4 teachers on one team and 3 on the other, and that does impact how we place students. So in general, our classes, smallest class is at 24, our largest is at 27, there's 1 class there. However, we do have a class of 18, we do have a class of 21 on a 3-person team, but I wanted to just list that separately so it's not misleading. We want to be transparent about our class sizes. So as we bring our 5th graders up, again, we have students who will be exiting life skills and exiting special class, so we'll be at 154, which is 25.66. In this case, these students are already in 6 sections. We're rolling them up to 6 sections. Again, this is a reduction we probably might have already considered, and there is a benefit to even teams for how we place students when we have, in this case would be 3 teachers on each team. Questions?
So it looks like the biggest difference is the 4th graders going up to 5th grade, correct?
Yes.
And that was, you did that especially this year because of learning needs of that group of children.
Yes, and specifically, that grade level just has so many more students who are L students, but many of them, if you look at the continuum for L, many of them are attaining now the highest level, and what we call just after they completed a commanding. So while there was a large number, the bulk of them are moving to the top level of the L group. So
When they were in 3rd grade, did they have 7 sections then, or?
I do not believe they did.
Okay, so this was something that you did this year because you saw the learning needs of the children,
We
and
had-
now they've progressed.
We had the flexibility, and so we took advantage of that flexibility to do that.
Okay, and then the folks that are going into 6th grade, the average goes from 25.16 now
Right,
to 25.66.
yes.
But depending upon the teaming, those could,
Well, it will be easier to balance the class sizes with 2 even teams of 3 teachers each as opposed to a team of 4 and a team of 3, because that required a little bit of strategic placement in order to run the teaming.
but their class size is pretty much staying the same, yes?
Yes. Yeah, it is, absolutely, because, and there were 7, so there'll be 6 sections, so it will be a little bit larger, but it will be within this framework would
No,
be.
I'm talking about the 5th graders now have 20.
Oh, yes, they're staying exactly the same, yes. They are currently in 6 sections, going to 6 sections. That's why I'm saying this is something we probably would have been discussing in any circumstance.
In any circumstance. The biggest change is the 4th graders going into 5th
Yeah.
grade. So what happens if between now and the beginning of the school year, we have more 5th graders coming in?
So this is, Mrs. Freed, the question that I've been asking most frequently since our last budget presentation, because I think those numbers, sorry?
You're right at the cutoff of
I
what
think-
you're comfortable with, I think.
100%. So that is the question that I received from the parents who made inquiries. I had a small number of correspondence that came in, received by myself and the board, and I had an even smaller number of parents ask to speak with me personally. So the insight that I'd like to provide to the board and the community is we are right at the tipping point. I alluded to the fact at the last meeting where we are right at where my comfort zone ends for elementary class sections. Starting the year with 26 students in the class is, I think, as high as I feel comfortable recommending. So we have to look at the enrollment, particularly in our 5th and 6th grade, very, very carefully. But what I don't feel is responsible is making the decision in April where we exhaust our financing. So this is where the nuance of school budgeting really needs to be understood. Into our budget, we have built as much flexibility for contingency staffing as a $1.4 million deficit allows us to do. So even with that $60,000 of additional state aid that we allocated towards contingency staffing,
We have difficult decisions to make between now and when school begins in September. But what we have built into the budget is nearly, not quite, but nearly 2 contingency positions. So it is staffing that we plan to assign, but we have not yet finalized where those assignments will be made. So when we look at these numbers in 5th and 6th grade, we'll be looking weekly, daily, at where our students are coming and going from. When we looked at this year's trending, K to 6, the only grade level that had any real variance, really any great discrepancy between when we started the year and where we are now, is not surprisingly kindergarten. We have 11 more kindergartners today than when we began the year, and that happens frequently. Parents are indecisive about late birthdays, they move into the district because the children are of school age. We are accustomed to seeing increases like that at the kindergarten levels, and we plan for that. But in the other grades, the plus minus has been -5 has been the most we've seen leave, and +5 is the most we've seen come. So we're fairly stable at those elementary grades. +5, -5 is not 1 student per class. It's less than 1 student per class of a percent of change, or an actual change in dynamic. So we have to look at these class sections and where our enrollment and our registrants are very carefully. We know that some students will be leaving our district. And we also know that some students will likely be joining our district. So when we build these contingencies positions, we have to decide where to best place those teachers once we are ready to begin our year. I don't think it would be responsible to report to the board or the community tonight that we will take that contingency position and add it to the 5th grade, or add it to the 6th grade. But we'll be prepared to do that. Dr. Sapienza will have a plan in place for whether we have 6 sections of 6th grade or 7 sections of 6th grade. Dr. Toscano will have a plan in place for 5th grade with 6 sections and with 7 sections. And we will monitor our enrollment very, very carefully over the next few months and into the summer before we finalize where that contingency staffing will be placed. It is also beneficial to have contingency staffing due to student requests at the secondary level. We have difficult decisions that we make. For example, we know that AP Psychology is a very popular course at the high school. Last I saw, 32 students requested the class. If that number remains at 32, we have to make a difficult decision about whether or not we're going to run a rigorous AP class with 32 students in it, or if we're going to add 0.2 of staffing to make it 2 sections of 16. It's just an example. I'm not sure that those are the actual numbers, but it's a relevant example. But that's how we use, you're checking, don't check. That's how we use our contingency staffing. So sometimes it's a 0.2 here, a 0.2 there, and whether we apply it to math, science, social studies, music, wherever the need turns out to be, that's why we work contingency staffing into the budget. Unfortunately, with this year's very tight fiscal position, we can only build in a minimal number of positions to be contingent. So if we were to announce to the community today, we're going to add a section of 5th grade and 6th grade and run it 7 sections, and then watch the enrollment decline. So now we're running classes of 21 students, 10, 20, 21 students at those grade levels. We've exhausted our financial flexibility anywhere else for any other need that arrives, which also includes the potential of a special needs student moving in who requires a service that we need to provide for. So, the answer to the question that I was asked is, where is your comfort zone? I don't feel comfortable starting K to 6 at a number higher than 26. Right now, we are looking at classes that are right about at that number. So if we see increases in those grade levels, I will come back to the board with a recommendation to add a section. However, if we see decreases to those grade levels, or those grade levels remain constant, there won't be a need to allocate those very small contingencies we have to 5th grade or 6th grade.
When you say starting with 26, what does that look like? Is that for every class in the cohort reaching 26, or is that some at 26, some at 25? It would be every class in the grade hitting 26.
Well, one of the things that we have to make sure we do, forgive me, is to avoid circumstances like we have right now in the 5th grade at Boyd, where we have some classes at 24 and others at 27.
That was done specifically to match students with a specific learning style or a specific group, and I get it, but we can't do that. We can't start a year with that type of discrepancy within a grade level. So when we build our classes for next year, our building principals will be charged with, and I will be working with Dr. Hull to evaluate very closely to see that our students are equitably distributed, that our classes are balanced, that the needs of the students are kept at the forefront, and matching them with a teaching style, with a cohort of students that they work well with, and our classes are balanced. So right now, Mrs. Marcus, to answer your question, there would be some sections of 25 and some sections of 26. If nothing changes,
Okay.
but that is highly unlikely.
But you'll have classes that, and maybe I have this wrong, you'll have classes like an E&L class that'll have a different ratio. You can't put, you're gonna have a lower class number for those classes and you're gonna keep them all the same.
And make sure that we provide supports to those
So
classrooms
they'll have an
to
additional.
meet the new students' needs. Well, students with classes with a concentration of English language learners will have an English language learning teacher in the classroom with them. So those classrooms will have additional instructors to support.
So the ratio actually.
So the teacher ratio is much less, but the number of students in the classroom is the same. Yeah.
Are any of the teacher assistant positions being taken away from those grades?
The reductions of teacher assistants are not from general classroom settings, except in the case of an inclusion section where we're going from having a half-day teacher to a full-day teacher. The other reductions of teacher assistants are from our self-contained classrooms. The state allows for ratios of assistants to be in a classroom where you can identify a small class section as a 12-1-1 or a 12-1-2. We've noticed in the classrooms that we have designated as a 12-1-2, there are also numbers of students who have assistants or paraprofessionals assigned specifically to them as individual support. So we have classes that are on paper a 12-1-2, but in reality have 8 students, 9 students, and 4 or 5 or 6 adults in the room. And that's where we felt comfortable making some reductions.
I see, so it's not the main classes that we're looking at here that they're being taken away from?
Our large general education classes don't have a change in the services that we're providing, except in the case where we're increasing the contact time with the teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Foster and the administration, as Dr. Hull said, looking at the 6th grade declining enrollment, it may be a suggestion, a budgetary solution to go down 1 FTE. So this board, since I've been on, prior to me, I think has done a great job at forecasting, looking at our fiscal climate going forward. Obviously, there's variables and there's unknowns, and what the tax cap will be, but looking forward now, when the 2nd grade hits 4th grade, we have 136 students going to 151. If we divide that out by the 7 sections currently, we'll come out to a class size of an average of 19 to 20. So going forward, just to not have this conversation in a couple of years from now, is the administration to be looking at the grades behind the current FTEs we have in place and looking at those reductions, because I can see years, simply coming down the pipe here, this is going to be an ongoing recommendation. I just want to know, as far as our forecasting go, from our financial standpoint, this is going to be something that this board should, and the community should be looking closely at, and something that we may be considering going forward, and what are we looking at as far as our ideal number? Because obviously 20s would be wonderful, but that's not something that we, this is sustainable.
Thank you for the question. I think what is clearly illustrated with how we have allocated our resources is that we want to be reflective of the research that indicates that the most important time to try to minimize your class size is at the early primary level. So if you look at the way we've assigned our elementary teaching staff, it is purposeful that the classes at Harley are smaller than the classes at Boyd or the middle school. Next year, if we go with this projection, there are 6 sections on every grade level K to 6. I think that that becomes more of our norm and more of our expectation. And if we have a bubble in our enrollment that brings it above where we're comfortable, in that 26th number, then we add the 7th section. And that could end up traveling with that cohort of students. But right now, if school began tomorrow, I'm comfortable with this. We are fortunate that it does not. So we can forecast and we can really monitor our enrollment very, very carefully as late as August before we make final decisions about where our staffing will be allocated. That is the benefit of building contingency positions into the budget. We know we have the financial flexibility to add a teacher or two, and it's actually a little less than that as our budget is currently allocated. The $60,000 helped a bit. We put it in our staffing codes, but I know the board understands, but the community needs to understand when we budget a full-time teacher, it's $120,000 because we have to benefit. We have to budget for salary, benefits, and retirement contributions. So every full-time teacher is $120 approximate budget allocation. So $60,000 was good for half a teacher. Other questions?
What if enrollment jumps mid-year or October or something like that? I don't think that traditionally truly happens without some losses also, but what would we do if we're at 26 across the board for a grade and we get an influx in October?
Yeah, we wouldn't resection our students. Others have tried and failed to make that a successful endeavor. But once classes are built and the year has begun, that's the model that you're going to stick with for the 10-month school year. But what we would do if we have an unexpected influx that really brings up the class sections, we would provide additional supports for the classes, whether it was in the form of paraprofessionals or teacher assistants, or even part-time teachers to supplement the teacher that's in the room. We would add staffing to the classroom, not remove children from it.
Would that put us at any disadvantage next year trying to formulate the budget, not including the staff member this year to prevent that? Because then we would really need to add one the following year, correct?
The truth of the matter is, staffing is the 75% of our budget. Every staff member is, and I hate speaking about people this way, I am one of them. Every staff member is a reoccurring expense. One of the things that we are trying to do in this budget is not only reduce one-time expenses that help us this year, but reduce the number of reoccurring expenses so that next year when we do our rollover budget, we'll be $1.4 million less than we were this year in our rollover budget, and that will help us to offset increases that we anticipate. This was an attractive year for an increase to our teachers' retirement system, which is always significant. It's not going to be that way next year. So we have to anticipate that increased expense. The cost of healthcare increases every year. The cost of transportation increases every year. There are some contractual obligations that we know we need to meet that increase every year. So while we have expectations of increases, we need to find ways to absorb them. And when we can increase our revenue, we have to decrease our expenses.
And I think historically we have a good 10-year historical chart of influx in and out of the district. So to think that it would be drastically different is probably unlikely.
Like I said,
we always have a few in, we always have a few out, and at the end of the year, although, maybe they're overlapping 2 months where you're having a good amount in one section, but usually by springtime, it pans out, and we've seen that chart of the last 10 years of what's been happening in and out of the district. So we can probably assume that it'll be similar, correct?
Yes, and again, the greatest variance we've seen in any K-6 grade level outside
Kindergarten.
kindergarten is 5 students. And one grade level is -5, and another grade level is +5, so they kind of offset. The secondary program is easier to manage class size because we place students there, and we can say, okay, we got 35 requests, but only 25 of you get the class, the other 10 of you are going to get your second choice. There are ways to manage class size at the secondary level, and we try to accommodate as many students' requests as possible, but sometimes we can't. When creating the master schedule of the high school, we tried to initiate some wonderful new electives that we thought the students would be head over heels to take. But when only 6 students request a class, it's not going to run. When 42 students request a class, it's going to be 2 sections. There are decisions that have to be made that impact secondary staffing very, very different than the cut and dry nature of K-6. And I also want to make sure our secondary administration has some flexibility to meet student needs.
I have a question.
There are certain classes that we will be running, even if the class is small. For example, currently, one of our APs has 9 students in it, but it's the 5th year of a course of study for those students, so it's essential that we run that. We have another course that has 12 students requested, but that's also a significant course for students who will be majoring in that area, and so we'll be running that at 9 and 12.
I have a question. Do we on the secondary level, with those classes, do we do like priority so that, you know, if we have seniors, we give them first option, whereas sophomores and juniors would have more of an opportunity following years? Is that a strategy that?
Yes, 100%, and we also want to make sure that students complete sequences and programs that they've developed. So when they're going up that scaffold of the math courses they require, the AP sections that they're taking, we don't want to disrupt student program. And yes, upperclassmen are given priority.
So that number of 32 could be a mixture of all sorts of grade levels, and then when you really get down, you could really finalize one class and just...
Many students are given the wait till next year message, yes. When they meet with their guidance counselor and say this course may not be available to you this year, but in all likelihood it will be available to you next year.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I had one more question. I know I've sat through when I was in the public that BOCES had done some demographic surveys, talked about, you know, population and growth, you know, the senior population as opposed to the younger population, you know. But yeah, and I'm just wondering how often do we do they do that for us? Is that done on a 5-year basis? Do we use that in our planning for the future? I know Julie talked about, you know, basically we can estimate the 10-year just by our data, but you know, we have seasons coming in, we have a lot of homes going up for sale. Hopefully those are people that are coming in that in 4 or 5 years they're making babies now and they're going to be in our school system.
Keeping us in business, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just curious.
The BOCES demographic study that was last taken is not as accurate as we'd like it to be with what we're seeing in actual numbers. We are seeing more market increase to an influx of English language learners. We are seeing that our percentage of students free and reduced lunch has grown tremendously over the last 10 years. We see that the number of students who require more intense special education services has increased tremendously over the last 10 years, which has a lot to do with some variances in our budget. But our trends are not unique to Elwood. They are certainly regional, and we're seeing a lot of the same trends as neighboring districts. I had some conversations with colleagues who have very similar budget challenges. One of the things that they had that we don't is that they were able to decrease the number of positions by attrition. They've had their enrollment decline tremendously and retirements to offset. We had one teacher retiring this year, and we wish her well, but that's just one. The Smithtown School District was able to make up a near $10 million budget gap just by their declining enrollment and number of retirees they had in their system. We're small. It doesn't work that way here. We have other challenges that we need to face and meet. But as far as enrollment trends, the last BOCES demographic was a little skewed. And if we were to ask BOCES to do another demographic study, there is expense associated with that. But I think what will be helpful to us is that next year is a census year from the U.S. Federal Department. So we will get some census information that might help us make some predictions moving forward.
And my final question on the subject is, as we're going forward and those needs in ENL and the special ed and the other things that you just described, are we pushing forward in our advocacy toward the state to really get some of that funding, because our needs are increasing, but our funding's not increasing. So is there a pushback on, and I know you're very actively involved in this, to really, as a group, say to these people, listen, you can't draw blood from a rock, and
Unfortunately, the state, as much as I'd like them to appeal to my emotion, look at our data very closely. And Elwood, in comparison to the largest percentage of the state, we are a very wealthy district. We are perceived as a wealthy district on paper due to the community wealth ratio that's listed for our district. We have some very high-end incomes family that offset some of our lower income families. So we are perceived as a high-income, low-needs district. I will tell you, however, that those numbers are shifting. And as our percentage of students on free and reduced lunch continues to increase, the amount of aid that we receive will be partially based on that number. But also keep in mind our enrollment is decreasing and our aid is based largely on that number. But to go back to your first question, when we do have high-needs students, the aid that we receive back on some of those high-cost students is greater than a child in a typical program. So we have thoroughly invested in auditing all of our submissions to the state for high-cost students, and we do expect a bit of additional aid to come back on some of our high-cost children.
Thank you. I have one more thing I just want you to clarify, because you put my mind at ease about it, and I think you'll put others at ease as well, about the reduction to TAs in the special education in the elementary levels. How are we shifting classroom instruction, which I thought was a very positive thing.
Yeah, when we look at integrated classroom settings, independent co-teaching models, there was a model in place in some of our classrooms where the special education teacher was there for half a day, and the other half a day the students were supported by a certified teacher assistant, which is fine. That's a model that works for us, and it works in many districts. However, due to the needs of some of our students and looking for some equitability across the board in our programs, we changed the model in those classrooms to have the special education teacher in the classroom full-time with the regular education teacher. So the staffing shift is an increase to teachers, a decrease to the teacher assistant, but we feel having the certified special educator in the room full-time better addresses the needs of the students. Any other questions from the Board of Education before we advance the slide? Community, I know you may have some other questions. We'll go back to that one when we get to public input if you'd like. Some other reductions that we identified. Professional development, again, we have to change the way we do things to maximize efficiencies. We need to be lifelong learners. We need to stay in touch with what best practice and recommendations. We need to make sure our teachers are trained in the best skills necessary. While a $5,000 reduction doesn't seem like a lot of money, when the total budget in that area was $45,000, it is a significant percentage of the budget code for professional development. Teachers College is a wonderful initiative that has shown remarkable results in the Elwood School District. The board has spent time focusing and praising the literacy levels that have increased at Harley and Boyd and now at the middle school, where we really see teachers investing in this program. We want it to be implemented with sustainability and fidelity, but that said, like everything else, we have to find ways to maximize our efficiencies. So the allocation specifically for professional development for the Teachers College Reading and Writing Program will be decreased by $10,000. Our AIS tutors, we're going to continue to provide the same services for our students, but the way we fund them is going to change. Mrs. Hull was able to make some different allocations within grant funding, which is grants are a revenue source for us that come from the state, Title II, Title III, Title I, sorry. So we're going to make some shifts there, but that's a reduction to our budget. Same thing with curriculum writing. She was able to work some curriculum writing initiatives into grants where you can reduce the budget by $15,000, allocate those money to program and staffing. Substitute teacher salaries, again, offset by the reduction in PED. If we have fewer teachers attending training and conferences, we need fewer substitutes, and we can't find substitutes anyway. So that was an easy reduction to make within the budget. Our district and every district on Long Island is suffering a teacher shortage in the area of substitutes. Athletic supervision, that's a small reduction that demonstrates that we're using additional security staffing for athletic events. We're using some shared supervision on our fields, so we were able to make a reduction there. And extra class assignments, that's when we assign teachers to teach above a full-time schedule. So if a teacher is a 1.0, an extra class assignment would be a 1.2. We had some areas where we were able to reduce based upon enrollment. So in summary, this budget really does preserve the largest percentage of programs and offerings to our students. School in Elwood in 1920 will very, very closely resemble what is taking place here in 1819 that we are very proud of, including the enhancements we've made, including the 9-period day at the middle school, including a lot of the additional mental health supports and all those things that we focused on in the first 2 slides. They'll continue, and our students will continue to excel. So the standard of excellence is maintained. So the total reductions we've made to our spending plan and where we are today to where we would be on September 1st is that $1,390,000. The total expenditures within the budget will correct on the final slide to have the additional that's not the right? On the next slide, we'll show you the final number that we're asking the board to adopt, including the additional state aid that we just received. But the projected tax levy increase does not change. We're asking the board and the community to support a budget that goes to the levy limit that is capped. And by the way, if you weren't following the budget conversations over the weekend, we know that the property tax legislation is now permanent, and it did not change in any capacity. There were some additional modifications that we had lots of people advocating for. The governor wasn't one of them. So the property tax legislation stays as is. There are no additional exemptions. So our property tax cap with exemptions is 2.56%, which is what we're asking the board to consider and the community to support. So with that additional $1 billion, we already burst the bubble on this one. Our percentage of that, or our portion of that, was $59,716, which brings our total budget recommendation that will be reflected in the property tax report card submitted to New York State at $62,728,901, checked 17 times before finalizing. Next. Any questions from the board?
I think we asked as we were going along, but any questions or comments?
The AIS tutoring grant is the AIS tutoring at the high school, correct, Mrs. Hall? I just want to say thank you because I know that whole program has been reinvented, and I really feel like now it serves the entire student body, both, even the AP students, and it really is something where we're looking at focusing on education and making sure that we're addressing all the learners across the board and having that opportunity to have that extra. So I really appreciate that you went out and found that extra money to ensure that that program stays.
Well, I will give credit where credit is due since the person is in the room. Mrs. Brzezinski developed a model, for those who aren't familiar, where we have certified teachers in a lab setting, in a classroom setting, where we have a certified science teacher, math teacher, English teacher, social studies teacher available to the students throughout the school day. Throughout the school day, they are available to the student population. There are a number of students who have that AIS period as part of their schedule where they are designed to go there. And for every other student, they are available. It is almost like a tutoring center where we have correctly certified teachers who work collaboratively with the members of their department to know what's happening in each classroom and having the supplemental materials and having parallel lessons to what's going on in the classroom. So any student that's struggling, whether it's the student who's getting a 95 who really wants the 100, or whether it's a student who's struggling to receive a passing grade, we have our AIS providers available to them within the confines of the day. And we've used it to our advantage in many, many capacities. It's a model that I hadn't seen before, and a model that is really, really working well. So kudos to the building administration for the proposal that is really working effectively.
And it's a model that is used on the college level. So to instill it at the high school level and get these kids familiar with that and comfortable is just a brilliant idea. And it's really been successful, and I really have to applaud you. I'm really glad that is not being taken out of the budget.
And we are working hard to replicate a similar model in the middle school. And of course, you're aware at the elementary schools how we have our math specialists and our reading specialists who work with our students in a lab setting, whether it's an IEP requirement for some, but for others it's academic intervention support services that are that second tier of intervention when they're not receiving everything they need within the classroom. It's a tier 2 according to RTI intervention, when they start working with our AS providers, and we have some wonderfully talented people in those roles.
I just wanted to say I appreciate your transparency with respect to actually throwing a number out there where you're comfortable with respect to class size. I said at the last meeting, it's super important to me that we maintain those levels. You've expressed that you will do that, but I just wanted to put on record, that we expect to see the 26 as a max, and I know that everyone's eyes are on it, and you'll do the best that you can do to make sure that we don't start with any more than that.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, we will be looking at enrollment every day. It's something that we are very keenly aware of. We know the importance of it, and we will use that contingency staffing to best maximize the program for students. It would be foolish to make decisions today. We really have to look at our enrollment, we really have to look at our student tallies, and that's a summertime finalization. But again, we will be prepared for both. Our building principals will build sections of 6th and 7th for both 5th and 6th grade, so that either way the pendulum swings, we are prepared and able to meet the needs of our students.
So I'm just clarifying that voting this evening is voting on the 2.56 tax cap, not going above the tax cap. That we would need a 50% vote for.
Correct.
The 2.5%. And you've made it very clear that these monies, depending upon the needs of the students, can shift, that we're giving our best effort to provide a transparent manner in which the monies will be spent, but if things happen, then these monies will have to be, that there's contingents in that.
We are asking the board to approve a total dollar figure, which calculates to a 2.56% tax levy, projected tax levy increase.
Which also keeps our fund balances
Keeps
funded.
our reserves, our 4% undesignated reserves fully funded, which helps our financial position. It's important. This is the year we go out to borrow money for our capital bond, and we want to make sure our Moody's rating remains at the high level it currently is. I will repeat it because it bears repeating. We just had a thorough audit from the New York State Comptroller's Office, and it is the first time I have ever experienced an audit in any district I've worked or any colleague I spoke to where they found no corrective actions necessary. It speaks to the financial stability of the district, and it speaks to the internal controls that have been put in place by the Board of Education and within the business office. They've looked at our spending practices, they've looked at our purchasing practices, they've looked at our internal controls and our reviews, internal orders, external orders, the work of our treasurer who is here tonight. Thank you so much, Rose, for your efforts. And all of the systems that are in place in benefits and payroll. We received no corrective actions. We got a letter that said, keep up the good work. For those of you that subscribe to Newsday, you know that is rarely the case, and the comptroller loves to report if they find that school districts are not receiving those high marks in internal controls.
And we've been in a place before where our fund balance was quite low, and it wound up really digging us in a hole. So,
and we are also, I'm sorry to interrupt, we are also applying the use of reserves as recommended by the comptroller's office. We are using in excess of $820,000 of our revenue this year, of our budget this year, will be taken from the ERS reserve. We were able to put the money away when we had it. Now is the time where we need to spend it, and that is what the comptroller recommends to maintain fiscal health. So $820,000 contained within this budget is coming right out of reserve, and that expense is not turned over to the taxpayer, and it saves us from having to make over $800,000 of additional reductions to our budget. It is strategic use of reserves.
So, I have a few questions about how music gets into the program, but by the time you present, it'll be 9:30.
We're actually just going to wait for the kids to arrive.
I just want to say that I appreciate the hard work that your staff has done, and being a senior, I've been sitting in on these meetings for 20 years, and we've had a lot of talk about a 9-period day in the middle school, about needing another guidance counselor at the high school, about having more AP offerings, about bringing Columbia Teachers College into our district to really compare to the districts around us. And we've seen all these great things happen as a result of that. And anyone, it's very easy to look at a line-by-line budget and say, professional development, and scratch things off a list. But it really takes a leader to have a vision. And we've done this in the past. We've brought programs in and then said, we can't afford them, and taken them away. We've said we want a 9-period day and then said, done research on it and proven why it's much better, and then at the end of the day say, we don't have any money to do it. So being a small school district and having a vision of making our school district better and improved without just saying, well, we don't have the money, really trying to make it the best and most efficient it can be has been your goal, and I applaud it, because I've sat at these meetings and we've given and we've taken away. And it really looks like you're committed to keeping us competitive.
And I hope you're referring to the collective you, because
Exactly.
this is a partnership with the Board of Education, the community, the faculty, staff, and our students investing their time in success. And I have to make mention to the fact that when I look at this side of the auditorium, this is our middle school staff. They are here tonight to demonstrate to the board and the community their support for the work being done in this building every day. And there's such a large percentage of the team here tonight, and I apologize that it's 9:30, I really do. But
No,
obviously
never
the
comes
budget
from
has
another
been, I would tell you to come late tomorrow, but Dr. Sapienza says no. But it really demonstrates the support that our faculty and staff has for what we're doing with our kids every day, that they are all sacrificing their time to be here. And we are working very hard to maintain that standard of excellence so that they continue to sit here and be proud of what they're doing each day. And the board providing the flexibility for us to do that, and the community supporting that is very fulfilling. But the you is a collective you, because there are a lot of stakeholders that helped us to get where we are and will help us to achieve even higher gains.
Thank you. That's it for us. So what I'm going to do is open it up to the community for questions as promised. So if you come up to the microphone, if you could state your name and any organization that you represent. Obviously, the rules of resident remarks still apply. Mrs. Bell. Representing yourself or PTA?
I just switched it on. Okay. I'm representing myself and my family. I had a prepared statement, but I'm not going to read it because you did answer most of my concerns. So I'm really happy that what we talked about yesterday and all my questions that you answered, you reiterated all of that today to everyone, so we're all on the same page. My lingering concern, and I will state it, is I believe from the research I've read that 23 is our goal, not 26, but I will be okay with 26 because of our financial situation. I do hope that in the future we could look towards that as a goal, not as a lofty goal, but maybe a potential goal. K through 6.
Yeah, Mrs. Bell, we're in agreement.
Yeah.
I chose my words carefully. I said this is a number I'm comfortable with.
Right.
Our ideal is certainly less than that.
Yeah, so we're on the same page with that. As the presentation came through, I was very relieved and happy, and I thank you for all the work and the time that you've taken to educate parents individually, as small groups, over emails and phone calls, and tonight everything was expressed in the same way. My lingering problem is as maybe one child joins 6th grade in August, and then another one in November, and then another one in January, how will a teacher say this section is too much right now? Because I don't know how they will know that unless the kids are not doing well, and then it's after the fact. And is there going to be an automatic trigger of, oh, we have 3 sections of 27? Because there will be one section of 27, and I just need to know a little more of the detail of what will trigger adding an assistant into that section.
Well, I think I just made a pretty bold statement at a public meeting that's being recorded and archived. So if our numbers exceed where we are at the start of the year, I think it'll be incumbent upon us to provide additional supports. Now, we would have to evaluate what's going on in the classroom, what the needs are, and what type of class it is, and decide whether that support is part-time, full-time, paraprofessional, teacher, assistant, teacher. But all of those things would have to be looked at very closely.
And my fear is that there's going to be a section of 27, 28 kids, and it's going to go like that for a month, and after a month of some kids not doing as well as they could have been doing, then it will be addressed. But I would hope that maybe there's a trigger of like, okay, I have to put 27 in these 3 sections, and I have to hire a TA or add a TA as an automatic enrollment when it happens, instead of a month later when the kids aren't doing well.
It's a lot of pressure to have every word you say recorded. So I've now said twice. If we exceed those numbers, we will look at how to support the class best with what type of staffing and how often. But clearly I'm stating publicly that we would provide additional support for the class.
Okay, that was my lingering issue, and I do thank everyone. This has been a long process, and I think we've come to this presentation tonight because of all the questions and concerns, and I do thank you for fleshing it all out to come to this presentation. And I feel very satisfied, okay, and that was my last piece. And I think it's very easy to support a 2.5% increased budget, so good luck.
Thank you, Mrs. Benn.
Well, when you put your PTA president hat back on, we might have to talk about how we count on support from some of our outside organizations. For the community president's not aware, there are strict state regulations and guidelines that prevent school administration and school boards from advocating for a passed budget. It seems somewhat counterproductive in that we worked for months to develop the budget. We presented over a good period of time, but we are prohibited from saying, please vote yes, or please support the budget. Outside organizations like PTAs and endowments and booster clubs and athletic organizations and individual residents are not. But you will never hear me say, please support the budget or please vote yes on the budget, just so you will never hear any school administrator or board member say that. So when we do have our community-based groups who do feel supportive of the budget, perhaps we do ask you to express that in whatever form you see fit.
And I have 2 children in the middle school and 1 in the high school.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name?
Buka. I'm curious about what the music is going to look like, because I missed last week or the last meeting, and what would a 0.4, you said, reduction, all at the middle school?
Do you have to get up early tomorrow? It's part of the middle school presentation.
Yeah, that's what I said. I have some music questions, but I'm going to wait for Dr. Sapienza.
Oh, she's coming up next?
Yeah.
I do have to get up early tomorrow. I'm a teacher too.
You can watch our presentation on YouTube.
Okay, I'll do that.
I don't want to give you the fast forward version. Dr. Sapienza and the team are really going to go very into intricate detail exactly what ensembles are going to look like, vocal instruction, instrumental instruction, period by period. So I don't want to try to condense it for you. So yeah, we archive the presentation. It'll be on our YouTube channel tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm certainly not.
Hi, Mrs. Savitsky.
The question was if the community will be able to ask questions at the conclusion of the middle school presentation. There is a second.
There is another
There is a second
resident
invitation,
remark.
so yes.
Yep.
Hi, Ms. Savitsky. I have 2 children, 6th grade and 8th grade. So I understand your concern about class size for K to 6, but what are your thoughts on class size 7 to 12?
The same. We really try to make sure that we're maintaining those very healthy numbers. When the secondary principals build their master schedules, they do so with that same compass in mind, that we don't want to see 32 students in the classroom, so that when we have that many requests, the appeal tends to come to district office to split the class into, and things like that. We really have very similar numbers in mind, K to 12. We may have, because we operate so many singleton class sections and we are so small, we may have some sections, and PE comes to mind, that may exceed that number of 25, 26, but they're definitely the rare exception, not the rule.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
My name is Jessica Klinko. I have a 3-year-old who's not in school yet, but I have a 4-year-old who is entering Harley in September. As promised, I'm introducing myself.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm happy that I came tonight. I'm happy with the information that I was able to see. You know, that was one of my comments about, you know, just all the information. And one thing I just wanted to point out with Jameo, is that it? Okay, with Mr. Tomeo's comment about the seniors of the community. Just as important as it is to make them feel welcome to the community, to have them come and vote for the budget, there's the rest of us that have absolutely no idea that this meeting is going on tonight. They have a 2-year-old throwing spaghetti at them and just bath time, bedtime. So, you know, it's important that the rest of us younger parents who are new to the district like me know that this is going on.
This is why we struggled with the calendar.
Yes.
Because the calendar really does tell everyone what's going on.
I've never seen this calendar. I've been here for 6 years. I found out about everything going on here because I decided to join a Facebook group for Elwood parents. And
Are you a concerned mom?
yeah, I'm in a concerned mom group. So I met some people in the group. They're sharing information. That's really kind of how I found out about everything, you know, just to get involved. And also, you know, going back to, you know, my son is a special education child. I had absolutely no idea about the Elwood SEPTA until I went on my Google hunt to go find some support services with other parents in a similar situation. You know, and I have, my son goes to building blocks in Comac. At my CPSC meeting, you know, I said, hey, we should give some information to the parents who have children that are in special education so we know what's going on. So, you know, there are people, I don't have a suggestion on how to kind of get more people involved, but, you know,
Sure.
getting the rest of us involved too helps more
And one of the
people in the
things-
seats and more people getting up to vote.
One of the things that you should look forward to is that we do a kindergarten orientation for parents. And we talk a lot about what happens in the district and different groups that we have, whether it's SEPTA or the PTA or some other community organizations that are affiliated with the district. And we make sure that parents are familiar with where to get all the information, not just from our district calendar. Our website is really a good hub of where you can find much of what we do. And even your comment about spaghetti against the wall, one of the things that was changed here 2 years ago is that we are currently live streaming our meeting. It's wonderful that people are able to attend, but when you're not, you can go to our website and watch the entire meeting being conducted live, or you can go on tomorrow and watch the archive video of everything that was discussed.
Right. I mean, well, I know that now. You know, and in the area that I live in, there's a woman down the block. She's got twins that are 4 years old. I'm sure they'll be probably registered for school too. So just, you know, us learning the information, being able to pass that on to other parents or finding a way to get us involved. Because now that I'm involved, I'm involved. So.
Good. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Can I just add one comment made for Harley?
Come up to the microphone, please.
We do have Facebook pages,
Yes.
so that you will be involved. I did the kindergarten orientation last year, and one of the meetings on PTA there. And, you know, my son's in kindergarten now.
my daughter's in 3rd grade, and it is very important to be in the loop of what's going on, and we try to reach out to whoever we can and get you involved, emails, get on the Facebook pages of the classes, and you will know all the information. That's the best way to do it. Because I think I've spoken to you on the concern page, so I totally get where you're coming from, but we do our best to get all the new parents involved. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Now, I'm not one to populate the Facebook page, but I understand there is a concerned Elwood moms page and also an unconcerned Elwood dads page. That is far
No, they were too lazy to get that started, I told you that.
Incorrect.
Okay, Rich, if you're watching.
Stand
This click was to reiterate, that is definitely, I think, every member up here, we have been struggling with just that, how to reach the entire population. And it's not just the seniors. The calendar was a segment to maybe help reach them. And I think we've tried as a board and as a district to utilize our, the highlights that we set down. I think maybe it'll be something we can all look into and working with the PTAs to maybe have a blog or a little blurb within there to reach out. Because there's always so many things that go out to community-wide, and highlights happen to be probably at this point the calendar, the only thing that does. So that is definitely something we can look into. It's only twice a year versus it used to be seasonal. So that may be a good avenue for us to look into, to reach out to new parents, the seniors, something that goes to the masses. And, it's definitely the board's one. I will speak for the board. I know it's a common thread. We want to be involved. And that was something through this process. And my 4th year of the board here, this is the first year that we've had a full respectful data. Then it went back and forth. There were suggestions from the community. There was community outreach. We serve on this dais, but we don't know what the community is thinking. Our job is to represent the community at large. And that goes for the students, that goes for people without kids in the district. It's our job for the taxpayers, the students, you guys, everybody. And it's hard to do a job unless we have a conversation and know what the pulse of the community is. So, kudos to everybody out there today who reached out to us and had that conversation. It helps us do our job and be the electors that you guys put in place to do so. We want to do our job for you, but we need to know, what's going on out there. So definitely this budget, my 4th year, where I speak for everybody, this was one of the best budgets. It was the most thoughtful, transparent. Administration was charged, the community charged us, we charged the community. This is what brings Elwood.
We tortured the administration.
We tortured the administration. Dr. Foster had hair prior to this. You never know. But this is what makes the budget process what it is. So, thank you from all of us.
Shameless plug. There are also a large number of administrators and faculty members in the district that are very active on Twitter. So if Twitter is a place that you go, there's a lot of information that comes out of the
But you don't have to follow them individually there. It's on the website.
As long as you're following me, you will be inundated with ongoing information about the goings-on of the district. But yes, we do put our Twitter feed on the website if you're not a Twitter subscriber. But if you are a Twitter subscriber, you will have every sense of what is going on in the Elwood School District every day. We have some very, very active accounts.
We have to get more Dr. Sapiens out here.
Well, we just conferred. As much as we would love to tell the middle school faculty to stay in bed late tomorrow, what we can offer is bagels when you arrive. So a little bit.
Some carbs.
A little something, extra coffee. I don't know. Are we closing?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all very, very much. And at this time, I would like to call upon our middle school principal, Dr. Sapienza, and team to go ahead and make a presentation that will take us through the wonderful enhancements that have been occurring here at Elwood Middle School, some things that are currently taking place, and some projections for next year. Faculty, I can't thank you enough for your stick-to-itiveness.
That was great hearing my name. I just felt like I won an award or something, so thank you. Definitely want to thank the staff for being here tonight. I know it's a late night, we have to get up early, but just, it means so much to me to look out there and see all of you here tonight. So good evening to our board. I would really like to take the opportunity to thank you and our central office staff and our community for supporting our middle level vision and all of the work that has happened over the last year and a half. We are so grateful for your belief in us. I would like to thank Mrs. Valley, who couldn't join us here tonight due to some minor surgery, but I know she's at home watching. Hi, Mrs. Valley. And we appreciate her passion and dedication for middle level education as well. But as I started to say before, my deepest gratitude goes to this middle school staff. Since I had the privilege of becoming your principal, your open-mindedness, dedication to honor and love our middle school students, and willingness to enthusiastically try new things has been inspiring. I'm grateful for each and every one of you, and you make me so proud every single day. Tonight is a celebration of the tremendous work that has been taking place at the middle school. A year ago, this was all an idea, a vision, some color-coded charts, and some sticky notes. I stand before you tonight to take you through the reality that the Elwood Middle School has created. One that is developmentally responsive, academically excellent, socially conscious, and continues us on our path of excellence. We will explore our 9-period day, teaming, enrichment, other highlights, and our future plans. So there has been some great benefits to adding this 9th period to our day, and the most important one is access and opportunity. Students are engaging in targeted instruction and core extension. All of our students are having the opportunity for enrichment, and students are having more access to special area classes when they're engaged in AIS, special education services, and our students who are taking earth science labs. One of our greatest welcomed additions to our middle school is our teaming in grades 6 through 8. The goal has been to build relationships, offer consistency in teacher expectations, and develop curriculum that is interdisciplinary and relevant. Teachers are engaging in instructional approaches that are rooted in research and considered to be best practice for what our middle level students need. Instruction is cognitively active, it's creating a positive climate and reducing stress for our students and our teachers. It's positively influencing students' self-concepts, it's encouraging risk-taking, and it engages in multisensory activities. I could go on and on about teaming, but I have a feeling that I have a video that can do it so much better. And a special thanks to my 7th grade Blue team for putting it together. So that was just a small sample of what all of our teams are experiencing in grades 6 through 8. And I just have to point out that our middle school teachers have worked so hard to make teaming what it is. When you look at the research, it suggests that it takes 3 to 5 years for schools to fully embrace teaming at that level. Our teachers have done that in 3 to 5 months. It is a credit to have the core values of teaming mirror those that our teachers already have. 6th grade seminar is one of our new enrichment courses in 6th grade. It is a class that has been developed to set students up with support and success as they enter the middle school years. The curriculum continues to be enhanced with input from all stakeholders, teachers at every grade level, mental health staff, students, and parents have added to the development of the programs that we're teaching. Some highlights this year have been everything you need to know about EMS, essential skills such as digital citizenship, social responsibility, and Google applications for education. We also have partnered with outside organizations. This year, Huntington Drug and Alcohol Counseling Center has come in the fall and will come again in the spring, where they teach push-in lessons. They cover topics such as decision-making, managing emotions, and the harmful effects of drugs, alcohol, and vaping. STEAM and coding, as we talked about a little earlier tonight, have been wonderful additions to the middle school. Our 7th grade coding class and 8th grade STEAM class have given our students experiences with problem solving and the design model. Students have explored the fundamentals of engineering and coding. Students have learned to create, solve challenges, and write binary code for real-world scenarios. I'm not even really sure what binary codes are, but our middle school students do. The platform Codesters continues to be a fun, user-friendly platform to learn the coding language of Python. This was the first year we ran these courses as an every other day, full-year course. Due to the overlap in some of the concepts of problem solving and design models, and as Dr. Hull mentioned, the need to incorporate coding into some of our STEAM projects, we decided along with the teachers earlier on in the year that it made sense to combine these two courses that will be a part of our 8th grade program. We've created a slide to sort of show you the enrichment evolution. In the evolution from 1819 to 1920, one of our proudest highlights is bringing music into our 7th and 8th grade school day. And I know that with our music teachers, this is a very welcomed addition. This will ensure the growth of our middle school program, but more importantly, provide access and opportunity to all of our students. It also fulfills the New York State requirement that all students take a half unit of music at some point in 7th and 8th grade. This required us to move around a few of our courses, both to enhance the programs, as I mentioned, in coding and STEM, and to ensure that we're meeting our requirements. We put technology into 6th grade, which does take the place of world cultures. We echo Mrs. Weiss's sentiments about the World Cultures class being a great addition to 6th grade, and our students did truly enjoy the experience of exploring and engaging in cultural diversities. And I do have to thank our world language teachers for creating such a wonderful program. We are looking to explore next year how we can bring that into 6th grade. We have explored some ideas of using our core extension to give students more opportunity. So we do look forward to hopefully being able to bring that back in some fashion. I know there are questions about what music will look like in the day, and Dr. Hull is going to assist us with those slides.
Good evening again. Bringing music into the school day is something that we have been talking about for several years. And really upon Dr. Sapienza's arrival, it was one of the ideas that we were looking at. We know that music is a very valuable part of a child's education. There are many research and academic studies that have demonstrated that music education improves academic performance. It fosters creativity and problem solving. We know that it builds persistence and that students are working collaboratively. And it really it also teaches students about appreciation because as I have always said to students, you don't always have to be the performer. Performers also need an audience. So just developing the culture around music is so important, I think, for students and for our school. So the fact that we were able to have every 6th grader join an ensemble, but then as they went into 7th grade, we would have this drop-off of anywhere from 70 to 90 students for a variety of reasons. Now, sometimes they had elected and perhaps they don't want to study music anymore. But that was certainly not the case for many of those students. It was the fact that music was now going into zero period before school, and there were transportation issues, conflicts with extra help. So just from an equity perspective, it was so important for us to find a way to bring music into the school day. And of course, it had many implications with it, from scheduling to staffing. So what we are proposing is that we will have a performing ensembles in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, all meeting as part of the student's schedule. So when the students receive their schedule, they would see on a 6-day cycle that music would be every other day, and it's going to alternate with some type of special. It could be their facts and art, it could be their physical education. But it now becomes part of the classes that they attend on an every other day basis. And this will alleviate students having to choose between participating in music or extra help and struggling with transportation. I know myself, if music had been zero period, I would not have been able to participate in it. So we felt very strongly about the equity piece for our students. So when students are in a performing ensemble, it's part of how you can meet the middle level requirements from the State Education Department. It can also be a keyboarding experience, a general music experience. There's a variety of different classes you could do, but the ensembles do meet that requirement. So when we look at how does this impact our students' current programs of study? Well, for our 6th graders who are coming up from Boyd, it's really not going to be a change because they already all are scheduled for music. They're in band or chorus or orchestra. So those students would have the same experience. For our students currently in 6th grade, moving up into 7th, they're going to get to continue what they're doing this year. So they're not going to have a big change either. They're going to stay with their course of study in band or chorus or orchestra. For our, I'm sorry?
Or a combination.
Or, yes, and we'll speak to. So for the 8th graders, these are the students who are going to experience something different. Because these students, when they finish 6th grade, some of them stopped participating. So for these students, they're now going to be placed back into a group. And our music teachers are working on a plan for how they will contact students who have left the program to see if they want which program they'd like to return to, because music is a sequence. So many of these students started playing in 4th grade and they played through 6th grade if they were in orchestra or band, and this might give them that opportunity to return to that program. So to look more deeply at how this program is set up and why we are proposing the reduction of 0.4, the thing I'd like to look at is how we balance instructional time. When you are part of a performing ensemble, there's actually 2 components to your instruction. One is that you come together in a full ensemble, and that's all chorus members or all band or all orchestra. The other part of that is a small group lesson. And many times this is organized by voice or by specific instrument or by level within an instrument. And this is where you really delve deeply into the technique of playing an instrument or of singing. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the full ensemble. So when we move it into the school day, we now have to look at, well, what does that mean for instructional time? Well, currently, if you were in chorus, the chorus teacher was here 0 period 3 days a week, but the students were here once a week. So the chorus was broken up into 3 groups, and the students came once a week. By moving it into school day, they're going to an every other day model. So right now, they're having rehearsal once a week. Next week, in a 2-week cycle, every other day, they're going from 2 rehearsals to 5. So they've picked up 3 additional periods of instruction with the teacher every 2 weeks. Band and orchestra is actually going to decrease slightly because they are using their full ensembles at each of their 3 rehearsals. So the students were asked to come to all 3 rehearsals each week. So in a 2-week period, they're going from 6 rehearsals down to 5. However, because of the complications of the before school meeting, attendance will be enhanced greatly, and we anticipate much greater continuity. So we actually are perceiving that the rehearsal and instructional goals will increase dramatically through having it as part of a student's schedule. So this is the ensemble piece. The next part is the lesson. Now, in order to run lessons, the teacher is actually rotating it through their periods. So where an English teacher might know that they're going to teach periods 1, 2, 5, 7, 9, for a music teacher, they might be rotating what periods they're teaching throughout each week because we want to take children out of class at different times to reduce the disruption into the classroom environment. So right now our students are scheduled for weekly lessons, but they're given an option where they need to attend a minimum of 5 lessons per quarter, or they need to come to a makeup lesson before school, after school, or during lunch. So there are quite a number of students who stick to that minimum, and there are some students who try to do the potential of all their lessons, but that is not the average student. So now as we look at how many lessons will students get when we have a 0.4 reduction. Well, the 0.4 reduction we're looking at is in the choral program, where we're going to move to an every other week lesson. So in this case, we would expect the students to come to all 5 of their scheduled lessons. And yes, that would mean communication with our faculty and staff, explaining the difference, that now they don't have that option of saying, I'm not going to this lesson. But there still will be days when there's a test and they cannot go down. And so the make-up lesson structure remains before school, after school, during lunch, so that they can achieve their lessons of instruction. Our band and orchestra would continue as they are at this moment, where they're having the option of 1 each week, which depending on how long the quarter is, we're going to estimate at 10, but they have to meet a minimum of 5, which is what the majority of them achieve. So what does this mean now for chorus versus band and orchestra? Why did we look at the choral program? Well, we conducted a survey of school districts. It was voluntary. 21 districts responded. 9 of those school districts do not have chorus in the school day. There was a time when no middle school had chorus during the school day. Now, chorus is very important, and we value it very much, but there is a difference in the instructional demands of teaching the curriculum to a band student, an orchestra student, and a chorus student. Now, this is something that perhaps not everyone would agree with, but there is greater depth in the technical skills that you are teaching at the band and orchestra level because the students are holding an instrument, and because you have to learn so many things around technique. There's also a lot of music reading that goes along with it. There is also choral reading, but the depth of what the students are using, their lesson books, their curriculum material, is different. The level they go to reading rhythms and reading music is different. All of them have to, of course, work on breath support and tone production, and so we still value the choral lesson, but it's our belief that because of this idea of attending 5 lessons in band and chorus, and now making it, band and orchestra, now making it a 5 minimum for chorus, we believe that we will still deliver the curriculum, and that our students will continue to make progress. For the districts who responded that they do still have choral lessons, 3 of them moved to just doing a large group during lunch, and they were moving away from this more detailed choral lesson.
What happens to the children that have orchestra and or band and chorus with their lessons?
So currently what they do, and Doc is in the audience, so I know if I misspeak, you'll let me know. But currently what they do is they give them a reduced amount that is the minimum for each choral group. So right now, if you're taking more than 1 performing group, your minimum is 6, 3 of each. So they will do the same.
So it's the same. And do we have teachers available at every lunch period for lessons?
Not necessarily. What the students usually do who need to make a makeup, they make an appointment with the teacher. So they'll coordinate if there's a group of students, and they really work very closely with the kids to do what works for them. For some students, missing a lunch could never be a great option, so they'll do it before school or they'll work out a period. So I know, Doc can speak to that too, the flexibility of working around the needs of the students.
To summarize overall what's happening with our instructional time, and we put together both full ensemble and lessons, what we're looking is that our average chorus student will actually increase from 60 instructional periods with a teacher to 110. That's because they're now going to go to 90 ensemble meetings and the 20 lessons. For our band and orchestra, the average student will decrease slightly from 119 to 110. That's the 90 ensemble and the 20, you can see they're equal. There is, however, the option that if a student is going to come to more than the minimum, they will have additional periods of instruction. So we do see some gains for our choral students. We think that the fact that they're going to meet in a larger ensemble, because so much of music is blending and listening and developing your skills. So the fact that our students will be able to rehearse in larger groups together will help develop their skills. We're still splitting all 3 of our groups into 2 groups, A day, B day, by grade level, and then they'll come together right before the concert.
So in the chorus, just freshmen, it's been a long time since I took chorus. When you do the ensembles, do you not break them down into soprano and alto, or do you you doing the lessons or do you do it all together?
That's more traditionally within a lesson group where you take, say, your sopranos and you break them up even further into small groups. In many schools, chorus is always the full chorus, and you have the multiple voices in front of you, and because the students have to learn where their voice blends in with the other voice, where their part goes in. So you'll typically see, for example, when they get to 9th grade, they'll have a chorus rehearsal, and you have all the voices present. Then you have your lesson group where you're going into specific voice and into even smaller group.
And that's going to be the 5 lessons. And
Yes, that's
they
the
need
5
to make
lessons.
it up. It'll be the lunch before and after. But that'll be extended throughout the entire semester. So
Yes.
if a kid has 3, he only can make 3 classes for whatever reason, and he has to make up the other 2. Okay. That can be made up within that grading period, or does it
Yes.
extend past the grading?
No, it should be within the quarter. But also, we combine groups sometimes. So if you're teaching a particular group and there's an instrument that blends with that or is similar, like if you're doing a clarinet lesson, I'm sure, Doc, at times you've had a saxophone come down. It's your clarinet lesson, yes? For makeups?
Bassoon.
Oh, no, okay. So there's going to be times that, I'm sure that the students will be invited to join a group that's similar. The makeup won't always have to be at lunch. I'm sure they're already doing that.
Dr. Hull, as far as the rotation, so a student who doesn't like science can't miss science to go to the lesson. Is there going to be some equity amongst the class that they have to rotate?
The rotation is something that our music teachers work really hard with, and I appreciate their flexibility in how they move around their instructional periods so that it does rotate through the day. So they're not missing a class. So they come up with a number of periods they're rotating through. So let's say they're rotating through 5 periods. Then students will miss that class once every 5 weeks. So they're missing 1 of 25 instructional periods in order to attend lessons.
They're given like a chart.
Yes, they have everything. Because it's really a partnership with all of our teachers. Because everyone has to be in support and valuing music education for students. Because for our classroom teachers, they're working out the student not being present and helping that student to find out what they missed and what the assignments are. So it's really a whole school approach of believing that something is valuable for students and working collaboratively together. And this faculty is amazing at that. They work together to work it out.
The team is only on parents' stuff.
The teaming of the work.
It's going to be it's going to be the same protocol. The
Mm-hmm.
student is still going to go to the classroom teacher prior to their lesson, find out what their instruction is, and then head down. Nothing is changing.
No, none of that has changed. It's the frequency.
Just changing basically the number of lessons and everything else is always
Yes.
correct.
So I appreciate your perspective because I know you're a music person. Your background is you were a music teacher.
Yes, I was.
So that's a great person to present this. I think that middle school students have a very difficult time at their age deciding I can miss this class versus this class. And they feel a lot of pressure to make the right decisions on what classes they can miss for lessons and what they shouldn't miss. And I remember having discussions with my daughters about how could you miss the algebra review, when you had all these options of taking lessons another day. So I love that music is part of the day. I think it's going to open a lot of opportunities, and I hope we see bigger ensembles in the high school because of it. And really increase our program there, which would be wonderful. And I believe that this is the right decision for the district to make, and so many parents have been begging for this for years, that it's really difficult getting their kids to and from the music lessons in the morning, and kids making decisions about extra help. The only thing that with the choral students, and I also understand that you did the research and see that most of the time kids are really only taking the 5 lessons. There's a handful that take every lesson, but a lot of students only take 50% of the time. It just really has to be a collaboration with teachers. Otherwise, we're putting before school, after school lunch, and that kind of negates that you don't have to come before school or after school or during your lunch. not give those students the choice, it's going to be difficult for them, and it's really going to require collaboration with the teachers, and they can't kind of, they have to help students make these decisions.
Yes,
And if they don't have a ride to school and they can't miss a class, we're going to have to work something out for them.
Yes. It will require communication, it will require monitoring, but we're also continuing, we're in April, and we want to meet all of our timelines in terms of our budget. So when we go now, like for example, tomorrow we have a meeting for shared staffing where we look at what does it mean practically when somebody's traveling between a building and how does their schedule get built so that it works for both buildings. So as we go deeper and drill deeper, because part of our choral program is supported by teachers from other buildings and our band program as well. We have music teachers who travel to EMS. So as we look at that, if we reach an area where we're running into a scheduling conflict, we'll have to come back and talk about what are our other options. Will it have to be a 0.2 instead of a 0.4 decrease? Like, we'd have to look at that.
So it's, again, a work in progress.
We're moving as quickly as we can through it, but tomorrow's meeting will be very important in terms of shared staffing and looking at how schedules would work, which we've done preliminarily, but it's until you have all the buildings there all together and really looking at the matrix, it's a complex matrix.
Thank you.
Let's go back to the celebration. Dr. Sapienza.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. That was really very helpful. I don't think I could have done it quite as well. So core extension, as we mentioned, has really been a great addition to our middle school program, and it really has provided all of our students the opportunity to receive targeted instruction and enrichment in their content area classes. Core extension in English and math allow our students to delve deeper into the concepts taught in class, and some highlighted activities in English have been writing poetry, engaging in debates, creative writing, and studying short stories. Activities that have happened in our core extension math also seek to deepen our students' mathematical understanding. Students have explored coordinate plane battleship, designed pictures using 100 grid boxes, used their mathematical skills to escape the room, and conquered breakout boxes. Math has become a lot of fun during that period. Core extension is also used for students who receive academic intervention services in reading and math. Reading AIS consists of small group instruction that supplements the assignments going on in English curriculum. We address fluency and editing skills, comprehension skills as well. Math AIS is also offered during core extension to differentiate math instruction, close skills gaps, and the STARS assessment is used in both of those courses every 6 weeks to monitor progress and exit students from AIS when appropriate. Core extension is also offered in both of our classes in social studies and science. The curriculum enhances students' access to the fundamentals of research and the validity of sources and information. Some of the highlights in our science core extension has been interest-based research projects, Shark Tank inventions, a cancer research project, and forensics labs. It's a lot of fun to see the students measuring footprints and looking for fingerprints, trying to figure out who done it. And the social studies highlights have been exploring diversity in America, engaging students in debate, and each engaging in humanitarian projects. All of these classes are taught by their team content area teachers. So the teachers are able to work with their own group of students. Additionally, it's a common time for the team, so teachers can actually trade students as necessary. So with students in core extension math, but the teacher feels that in English they really needed to review a concept, it's a very quick conversation, typically at their team meeting, to swap kids or students when necessary. There's some other highlights that we really felt were worth noting in the change of the middle school from last year to this year, and one of them was to our guidance structure. This year, students were assigned to counselors by last name instead of grade. The benefits we see to this shift is developing the 3-year relationships with students and their families, and it also maintains that connection as families have new siblings entering the schools. Our counselors serve as an important member of our team meetings. They're often there by design with the teachers, talking about students who are at risk and may need additional support. And our counselors also create lessons to serve as a proactive support, and they push into classes. And this year, they will also help facilitate the rollout of Naviance in grades 6, 7, and 8. Another great highlight to the middle school program was we redesigned the integrated co-teaching model this year for our special education teachers and our teams. We have worked to team the special education teachers, so they are with the same group of students all day. They push into math, social studies, science, and English, and we have found that this provides consistency throughout the day, both for the special education teachers, students, and the team teachers as well. Additionally, one of the most important components to a successful integrated co-teaching model is common planning time. The special education teachers' schedule mirror those of our team teachers. So they off at the same time, and they have a lot of time to talk about students, plan lessons, and make modifications and differentiate as necessary. And this was done with a lot of support from the Bethler Credits Agency. We spent time professionally developing our teachers, at the end of last year, beginning of this year, and there's been ongoing coaching that has happened throughout the year that I know our teachers have found to be very beneficial. Our physical education program has also made a few changes this year, and we are now running as a co-ed class, which is the same that is happening at Boyd and the high school. The reason for doing this in the conversations we've had with the physical education department is to focus on the New York State standards of ensuring students are maintaining fitness, healthy fitness, participate in physical activity, and maintain personal health. Some new lessons that have been included in the program have been badminton, which might be the most exciting thing you can go see when it's happening at the middle school. And we've included yoga, which has been a big hit with our students. And I'm especially proud of our physical education teachers during Disability Awareness Week, going down to the gym and watching the activities that they created, where students had the opportunity to participate in sports, but with restricted physical capabilities, was enough to fill your heart. We had a particular group where at the end of the day we had 2 students who actually are in wheelchairs playing basketball with their peers who were also in wheelchairs for the first time, and it was a beautiful experience. So I thank our physical education department for that. Another significant accolade at the middle school is our middle school teachers' desire to continuously reflect, learn, and grow to meet the evolving needs of our students. Last year, our teachers happily participated in a full book talk where we all read the professional book, What Every Middle School Teacher Should Know. This year, we wanted to take the model and change it just a little bit, so we gave the teachers choices, just as we always say the students want. And the teachers chose books, and they are all engaging in literature circles, and the books they are reading are iGen, Teach Like a Pirate, Safe is Not Enough, and Managing the Madness, a practical guide to understanding young adolescents. Our teachers read in groups, they plan lessons, and then they facilitate some turnkey at our faculty meetings, and it's been a great experience for us. I do have to say, one of the greatest joys, and I know I speak for many of us when I say, was the creation of our Moving Up ceremony last year. Our goal was to honor and celebrate our students. It was a meaningful evening for parents, students, and staff. We spent 3 years together creating these meaningful relationships and connections, and it just seems so fitting to have a celebration where we get to send our students off knowing how much they meant to us. We look forward to doing it again this year. And as Dr. Bossert always quotes, the road to excellence has no finish line. So with that in mind, we turn our sights to what's next. We are very much looking forward to the enhancements that we have planned for next year. Some of them you've heard about already. Music in the Day, combining STEAM and coding. We're creating a fitness center to further enhance our physical education program, and it'll focus on physical wellness for our students and staff. We are creating, with the help of the Booster Club, a reflection room that will give students a space to decompress, reflect, and recharge when life can become a little overwhelming. We're looking to bring in clubs such as Science Olympiads. We're looking to enhance our musical program by also bringing in a choral club. And we're excited to engage in the schools to watch application process. It's a national distinction that identifies schools across the United States that meets the forum's criteria for high performance of academic excellence, developmental responsiveness, and social equity. And it will help continue us on our path of excellence with research best practice for the middle school learner. So as you can see, the middle school staff and students have been busy, but it's been a tremendous year, and I just again have to thank our middle school teachers for being here and your dedication to our students and our community. All of this is because of you, so thank you.
my eye. That's all it's all the adjectives that used to describe teaming. I really love that.
Thank you. We made it using a word art generator, and I appreciate you noticing that, because we did pick those words very purposefully to define how we feel about teaming. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
You're going to make it 30, we got to stay until 10:30. I just want to say that I am an incoming middle school parent. I will have a 6th grader next year, so I went to the 6th grade parent orientation last night. And as somebody coming from Boyd, looking at the mock schedule that you put up with a 9-period day, I want to again reiterate, I think Mrs. Mamolino said it tonight, but the joy of seeing the 9-period day schedule, and I looked at that and I instantly thought how much my daughter is going to love that, and so I want to thank you for being part of that brought that to this district.
Yeah, not to piggyback on that, as a mother of a 6th grader, my youngest, so I've had 3 older ones that have gone through, I love what you have brought to this program with the team, the collaboration that's going on with it, the inclusiveness that these kids feel as they come in at a very difficult adolescent time in their lives. They're very uncertain, and they come in and they feel like they would connect. I see that with my youngest child. I like the enrichment. I know I spoke about the world, cultures, and I'm sure music is going to bring a whole new realm to it. She's just going to come home and enjoy, giving experiences that she's had from that. I do have a question. With the 6th grade, with the technology moving down, and I don't know if you explained it or I missed it, what happens to that 6th grade cohort that is going forward? Do they just miss the technology? Are you incorporating into it? The one that's going to be 7th grade next year?
So moving from we moved technology from 8th grade to 6th grade.
Right.
So students will get technology in 6th and 7th grade. The program previously was 7th and 8th.
Okay.
So the 9-period day has been definitely a conversation since I was in middle school, and disappointed.
Only 5 years.
I was 15, so I don't want to make the teachers out there feel old. But it takes volume. It takes volume. It takes leadership. It takes a vision, and I think it's a testament of the middle school culture and who the teachers are, and building leadership, administration. That this was something that was an impossibility that now has become a possibility. And after seeing the presentations tonight, there's an endless amount of opportunity for the children, and something that it's hard to believe that we didn't have that only like 15 years ago. So I'm glad to see it's here. I'm glad to see that it's a working model, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Very exciting.
Thank you.
James, I'm going to echo exactly what you said. We've been talking about it forever, and I'm just so pleased with the changes that are going on in the middle school, and it's because of the leadership, but it's because of the staff. And the fact that a lot of them are here tonight really says a lot about your dedication to the students. And, it's a big change. It's a big change bringing Teachers College up here. It's a big change teaming and the way you do things. And it takes a lot of effort, and it's a whole different way of doing things. And it just says a lot about the folks that are here and working with our kids every day. So it's really, really appreciated and exciting. Thank you for sharing it with us. Okay, so we're up to accepting donations. I believe Mrs. Weiss, you are taking donations tonight?
Just to clarify, there's later in the agenda, there's a second invitation for public input.
Yep, there's second resident remarks after. Bagels in the morning, I'm told.
Yeah, we're going to have to work that.
Mrs. Weiss.
I received several donations. The first one was $1,000 from the Italian American Committee on Education for the purpose
purpose of enhancing the educational experience of the Italian language. The second is a night mascot costume from the Elwood Booster Club, valued at approximately $1,300.
What?
I know, it's an expensive costume. To support the Harley Night of the Month program, which was implemented, 2 years ago, Dr. Dawson. It's a wonderful program highlighting students who exemplify the character of Harley. The third is 5 mini basketball hoops from the Elwood Booster Club, valued at approximately $74.95 to be used in the James H. Boyd Intermediate School Makerspace Room. And the fourth donation is $240 from the Elwood Booster Club to support the James H. Boyd Intermediate School After Gardening Club for the 2019 early spring season. So all great programs. We thank all of the associations and the fundraising that goes on to enrich our students. And I also just want to thank again the EEE. I'm always in awe of the grants that come forward and the process that, the rigorous process that goes through in order to award these grants. It's just amazing, and it has brought so much to the Elwood community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Weiss. Can I have a motion to accept donations? Mr. Tomia, second by Mrs. Weiss. All in favor? 5-0. Okay, we're going to get to the consent agenda now. May I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Mrs. Weiss, second by Mrs. Marcus. Questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, questions or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? All in favor of the consent agenda? I'm coming back to the budget. The only things that are starting. So all in favor for the consent agenda, please? 5-0. And then we are going to go back for the budget adoption. Can I have a motion to accept the adopted budget for the 2019-20 school year? Motion. You can comment. I'll give 2 questions or comments. A motion first. Mrs. Weiss, second by Mr. Tomia. Questions or comments?
I just wanted to give the community an opportunity to do residents' remark before we took the vote. We were supposed to open it back up for residents' remarks, so I wanted to do that before the vote.
Okay, I thought we gave them the opportunity after the budget presentation.
Well, we gave the music presentation, so I knew that there were questions, so I just wanted to give that opportunity to.
Not a problem. So before we adopt the budget, which again is just the dollar amount, not necessarily, I'll open it up, if that's okay with the rest of the board, for the second resident remarks prior to that vote. So, seeing some, the board encourages all residents to attend its meetings. This section of the agenda affords them the opportunity to speak. You know the deal. 3 minutes. And public discussion of matters relating to staff, students, or others at which the reputation's privacy or right to due process could in some way be violated is prohibited.
Hi, my name is Bromley. I just have a couple questions. I don't know if I misunderstood. Just to clarify, in the music presentation, going back into some of your slides, it looks like in the past, kids coming up from Boyd had to take music in 6th grade. And then in 7th and 8th grade, a lot of kids, didn't take band or chorus, but it looked in your slide as if all 7th graders will now be taking some kind of music. Is that right? That's the change.
Yes, that's part of the change.
Okay.
The sequence will feel the same for our 4th and 6th graders rolling up to 7th because they're maintaining what they're currently doing. It's a change programmatically.
And what's the reasoning behind that? Is that a state requirement?
Yes, it's one of the middle level requirements is that students have a half credit of music between 7th and 8th grade. And so meeting every other day is fulfilling that half credit.
Is that new?
No.
We just haven't followed it?
We followed it for the students who came to.
Oh, okay. So, I guess I'm still not understanding why we're doing that with all students in 7th grade. I mean, because it was a choice before it was 0 period.
So
Okay.
now we will know that all students will meet the requirement, and in a year with greater flexibility, perhaps in 8th grade, we would build in other options. But we don't have that flexibility in the budget this year. So perhaps in 8th grade, we would offer options of keyboard or history of music, or we might also look at other areas like entrepreneurship. So we would look at other electives we would put in that place for that period. But this is the year that we had the flexibility, so this year all of our 8th graders would come back into the music program.
Okay. And that, and again, I'm not following, that's not new. We just haven't been following it because we haven't done that in the past.
So let me answer that question. One of the things we have to do is always audit our programs to make sure we're in compliance with state initiatives. And when we look at the credit requirements for music and fine arts at the middle school, we were not in compliance for students who didn't attend music ensembles during that 0 period. So when we speak of equity, we were in a position where we either had to provide transportation to make sure that all students had the capacity to join our 0 period class or bring music into the day. And it's my understanding that the community for a very long period of time has been asking for music to be part of the instructional day. So now we have the ability to reach 100% of our students to meet that credit requirement. To be transparent, we have not been in compliance with the state regulation for music instruction at the middle level for students who do not have the capacity to join us during that 0 period. This corrects that shortcoming.
Okay. I'm still confused because I understand the 0 period issue and why that's necessary and why people requested it. What I don't understand is why we're having kids in 7th and 8th grade. I mean, that is a new, that's something new. We haven't done that in the past. And I'll give an example. I know, Julia, you've said it's evident and sometimes comical in 6th grade. You will see a lot of kids who don't want to be in music, who are in the concert. And I think, you know, just from the perspective of even the teacher, you know, they have classes where they have kids who really want to be there, you know, they want to participate in course, and then you have kids who are there because they have a 6th grade requirement. And then after 6th grade, you know, you do have a lot of kids who won't be in any type of...
I think I understand your confusion, so let me explain.
Okay.
The middle school requirement needs to be met in 7th and 8th grade.
And we haven't been doing that in the past.
Correct. 6th grade is an elementary year.
All right, so that's why so this is something new that we were not following, but we are going to start following.
That is correct.
Okay. And I've talked so much, I've forgotten my second question. My second question was, yes. So technology, you had mentioned that previously it has been offered in 7th and 8th grade, and that we're switching to 6th and 7th grade. So this year in 6th grade, currently the 6th graders are not taking technology, right?
Correct. They're in a world language program.
Right. So then what will happen when you switch with those 6th graders who didn't have technology this year? What will happen to them next year?
They don't have technology in 7th grade.
Only 7th. So they're not getting 2 years in middle school. This current 6th grade class?
This current 6th grade class had a world language experience that we're not continuing. We're phasing it into other aspects of our curriculum. But the technology they'll experience in 7th grade and in 8th grade, the movement is to, what's 8th grade?
So the STEAM and coding can be taught by teachers from at least 3 different departments. We're going to assign it to technology so that it has the technology certification and it meets that requirement. So for those students, as they're processing through, where perhaps we might have assigned it to a science teacher, but in this case we're assigning it to a technology teacher so it meets that requirement for those children going into 8th.
Okay.
And then the children, it will do the same thing the following year so they will reach their
So for the current sixth graders, we'll have technology next year, and then it will be a STEAM class in eighth grade.
Yes.
Is that right?
All
Okay.
technology teacher.
Okay, thank you.
First, I want to start by saying I am very happy to hear that music is going into the day. I think that's a positive thing. What I'm not happy about is cutting back on the chorus lessons, because I do feel that those students are getting something taken away from them and getting opportunities taken away from them that the other ensembles aren't being afforded. It's not equal to me. They're having an easier time to find time to go to lessons. My daughter has missed classes. She's been told she can't go to lessons because she can't miss something. So I think it puts a lot of pressure on her. And I agree with what you said about that, and I hope that's something to look at. But something that I think wasn't addressed, what happens to the students who take two ensembles? Like my daughter, is she going to lose her specials? How is that going to be incorporated into the day?
The lesson part, the requirement for the number of lessons is reduced. Somebody has it. Can you tell us how you bring them in periods, but you need to know the microphones. I'm sorry, Mrs. Reeves.
No, I think I had asked that you said it was going to be a 3 and 3 kind of 3 and 3 lessons.
That I understand. That's how it currently is. Mine sometimes goes to all the lessons when she can make it. But I'm talking about the ensemble, actual class. Right now she has orchestra every other day. And now she's going to have orchestra every other day, and chorus, I assume, every other day. Is
Well,
she going to lose the special?
No, she's not. Well, we have a couple of options. So she doesn't need to lose a special. We will be doing what we do with jazz band. Students who like to take that additional bands period. We're looking to create that choral club that I was speaking about earlier. That'll give students an extra opportunity to participate in chorus. And then she can also attend the lessons as well.
No, I'm talking about her core chorus class. Her everyday, like 1, 3, 5 days.
Oh, okay. Oh, so yeah, the 1, 3, 5.
I had it shown with, like right now it's every other day art and every other day orchestra.
Correct.
But now she's a double music student, so she's going to have a second music during the day. What will that child lose?
Right. And that's something we would talk about together, because there are some options and it won't be the same for every single child. So what we can do is look through her schedule and we would make some conversation about that.
But this is
That
still,
affects all double music.
yeah, we are still looking at the best option for that, because in any school, you're not placed into ensembles as part of your full schedule. You visit the second ensemble. So the degree to which we can do that is what we have to look at. So that she wouldn't have 2 full periods like that. But that's something we're still thinking of. We have to know the exact number of students that are involved in that, and then we have to look at how it works with the rest of the requirements.
So that's something that counselors will be able to sit and address with the parents before they team them. Like, will they go over that schedule?
It's part of what would be communicated for students who wish to do.
And also just, the music teachers are very actively involved in that conversation. Everybody has the same goal to keep students having that access and opportunity for the things that they love to do. We know that for a lot of students, that's more than just one ensemble.
And I think that we have a lot of students that do that, and I think that in the high school, there's a lot of students that do that, so I'm sure having conversations with the high school students and teachers on how they work that out, because music is part of the high school day, it's the 8th period for everybody. And there are many students that are involved in too, like my kids did that as well. And I'm sure those conversations will happen with the middle school teachers and the high school teachers, how that works out. The only difference is that in the high school, it's every day. So it's a little bit easier. So we're going to have to collaborate a lot on this.
I guess my point to that is, I don't feel they should also have to lose technology now because they enjoy music, or lose their lunch period because now there's socialization.
I think we will absolutely, we'll do our best. What we've tried to keep as the priority is the increase in instructional contact time. So to take a group to go from, meeting every, once a week for maybe 35 weeks, and now bring them into 90 periods of instruction, there's going to be a tremendous enhancement to the program. So, we're looking at each step of the process, and then looking at how we resolve something that might occur. So, for example, every student's Ennisma is something that's addressed very differently in every school district. Some, they don't do any instruction for it during school at all, and I think it's really valuable, and I appreciate that our staff are involved in that, because I also think it's a very important issue that you're not relying on the private teacher for that. So I think our music teachers have expressed such incredible excitement and appreciation for this schedule change, because they know the difference of going from what they're doing zero period to what will be during the school day, and they have been extremely responsive to each item that's come up and have been part of the team, meeting with Dr. Sapienza and Mrs. Valley, to really talk about what would be the most optimal solution for this thing. So I really feel confident that when we talk about that they'll continue to have those opportunities in their day, and that they will absolutely continue to support it. Which I know that's a kind of a brave thing to say, as Dr. Foster says on recording, but I see their passion for their program and what they believe it does for students' lives. So
Yeah, no, I would echo that with the meeting with the music teachers, absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to say that because I don't want it to turn out where suddenly all the orchestra and band, and my daughter plays orchestra too, so that benefits her, but all of a sudden I didn't want to see them getting those ensembles, but they're going to get through me at this, and that's what we're going to those two again. So I just want to
that's very important, and to speak to that, when we look at the total instructional time, and we see our students in chorus going from 60 periods up to the, what was the total number? 10, that's a commitment to improving the program. Even though it's coming at this timing where we also look at reductions, this is being fueled by improving the program. And so when you think about going from 60 sessions to 110, there's going to be improvements.
Yeah, that's positive, but actually getting the double music students to get all of those classes is where my concern is. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go to bed.
Hi, Mrs. Val, speaking as myself, and on behalf of the music children of Elwood. What I am hearing is that there is no plan for split music children. Orchestra / chorus, band / chorus. There is no intent plan for them at this time to have 2 classes, courses, graded the way they currently do. The lesson, I understand, the 3 and 3 continues because they'll have like a 10, they'll have 10 weeks to go to some lesson. They'll have to go to like 6 out of those 10, which is totally fine. But what I see and I've been kind of asking about, so that is going away, where it's on your report card. It's going to be a club to do if you are dedicated to an instrument and your voice, and the music kids who are into music are doing both. So this new program, what I'm interpreting is there's a quantity, and I'm going to say less quality for that minority of serious music children. And what I did learn as of last night, and confirmed this morning, there is an early morning bus, which I didn't even know about till yesterday. So there isn't? The 0 period bus?
No, there are many bus vans specifically for students with special needs that have a program. We've been allowing a small number of music students to access it, but it's not intended for the 0 period or music instruction.
Okay, thank you. That makes me feel a lot better. Because I'm like, wait, there was transportation. So if there is not, I'm completely fine with it coming into the day. What I don't see is a plan for the serious music child who wants to do chorus and orchestra, chorus and band. They're not going to get both classes. And orchestra children are going to get reduced amount of time in their group. I'm not even talking about the lessons, that's worked out. The amount of encounter minutes with your orchestra director is going down as part of the presentation, and those are the harder instruments traditionally, and that's why they meet 3 times a week, all year long. So I'm just very confused, because I know my child has 3 days of orchestra and 2 days of chorus.
Mrs. Bell, one of the things that we have to focus on when we plan programs is with all of our students in mind. And one of the goals of bringing music into the instructional day was an equity piece. We were in a position where the only students who could participate in ensemble are those that had transportation that could be provided by a parent. That was a problem that needed to be solved. One of the advantages that we have of working in a small district and a small middle school like this is that we can very often make specific programs designed around individual children. So I would disagree with your comment that there's no plan for the children that want to participate in dual ensembles. I would say that the plan will vary dependent upon the individual child and the schedule that is developed for them. I wouldn't say that there is a script that will be followed, that every child who wants to be in the orchestra and the chorus will follow this plan, and every child that wants to be in the orchestra and band will follow this plan. I will tell you that our music educators, our administration, and guidance counselors will work in concert to make sure that there is a plan in place for each child that has that desire.
Okay, so the letter that goes home to the 5th grade parents, to the children, that says, what do you want to do next year? Band, orchestra, chorus, both. Name the 2 that you want to do. That letter is going to be the same. So you will see the 20, 30 kids that want to do both. That letter's not changing. Okay, good, because I'm like, what's the plan? So, are they going to be able to take both courses, or is it going to be an after-school choral club for a band child that also is a singer?
So in meeting with the music teachers, this is what we're working through, and I, please don't minimize it by calling it a club, even though, we're calling it a choral, ensemble, really. We were talking about creating a select course. Many schools do this when students want to take more than one option. Most schools, as Dr. Hall said, no school I've ever worked at had 2 ensembles in the day. So you do have to make some concessions, but they typically are much stronger musicians. So we were looking to either create a select chorus, so those students would perform their own songs. They would typically be higher level songs than the typical chorus we're doing. But we are also looking at opportunities for students who wanted to engage in a double music if we offered a period of that as a 0 period once a week. So while we don't have a prescription, as Dr. Bossert said, of what that will look like, it will really be based on the needs from the students that we assess. But the commitments, as we've talked about previously, is to make sure that students who want to take a double music have that opportunity.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay. Our other question that we did have was that trium requirement for middle school is 2 performing groups. Is that? That's the requirement. You have to be in 2 performing arts groups and have a NISMA score at a certain level, and a high enough score at a certain level. But is that going to change? I think it has to somehow.
I think our trium advisor needs to address that with the change, because that's a local, that would be a local.
Those are local decisions.
Right, by some organization, right? So,
No. They decide.
Oh, they decide. Okay, so you don't know that if that's going to be altered because of the opportunities, right?
We wouldn't want to make an administrative ruling at a board meeting without consulting with the advisors of that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments? This is your second resident remarks. Okay. May I have a motion, Mrs. Weiss, to adopt the budget for 2019-20?
I have a motion and a second. We just need a vote. That was discussed.
All in favor? 5-0.
We thank the Board of Education for your support of the proposed budget. We look forward to working with you and the community to make sure that we continue with our full transparency. We have a number of presentations of the budget plan, both within the district and outside the district. very, very clear about both our budget and our spending plan, so that hopefully we will have a positive outcome.
Thank you, Dr. Bassett. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you to the community for coming with your questions. It sounds like there's some kinks to be worked out, and we're going to have to all work together to make sure that all the children get the opportunities that they want and deserve, and other children get more opportunity during the school day. So, sounds like a work in progress. Can I please have a motion to approve the property tax report card as stated in the agenda? Mr. Tamiya, second by Mrs. Mamalito. All in favor? 5-0. Okay. First reading of policies. We have a policy on student health services, student health service regulations, unsafe school transfer choice, and there are a number. Jean, can you pull these up on the board docs or no? Because there are. Okay. So this is the first read of the policy regarding student health service.
If I may, Mrs. Reed, I apologize. Just so the board and community understands the process. When we receive recommendation, we use NISBA as an outside New York State School Boards Association and their attorneys as a conduit for reviewing our policies as well as policies that they recommend for review and revision. This and other policies that the board will see tonight and in the coming weeks were revised by NISBA, reviewed by the appropriate district administrators and faculty members, and then presented to the board subcommittee, policy committee, which is served on by Mrs. Weiss and Mrs. Marcus. So the recommendations come forward tonight as recommended by both the superintendent and the policy committee after very thorough and careful review, and as recommended by the New York State School Boards Association.
Correct. So, any questions or anything about this first policy? I know that Mrs. Marcus and Mrs. Weiss were involved in it. I just have a quick question about our change of the opioid overdose prevention. That was taken out. And then we added something about the administration, the district permits administration of Narcan. Only by the school nurse or anybody who's trained?
The law would allow for any Narcan trained individual to use.
Right, but in our policy it only says by the school nurse.
Mrs. Janelli, would you please make a notation in the... Yep.
Question.
Yep. I mean, if the board is in favor, we can certainly revise the language to say the school nurse or any trained individual.
Can you direct me to that?
Hmm?
Can you direct?
Sure, it's right above communicable diseases. Under emergency care.
It says the district permits emergency administration of opioid.
Antagonists, such as Narcan by the school nurse.
So you want school nurse and
Any trained,
professional.
Yeah, I would say trained individual.
individual, because we had a whole auditorium full of people here trained in how to administer Narcan.
Okay.
So it shouldn't just be only the school nurse can do it.
Absolutely.
School nurse isn't there after school,
A coach,
and anybody.
professional. Okay.
There's a good Samaritan law on that anyway.
Yep.
Okay, that was the only question I had on that. Let me go back. Can we have, no? Any other comments on any of the policies? Okay, can I have a motion to accept the first read? Mrs. Weiss, second by Mr. Tamio, all in favor? 5-0. The second reading is, again, all NISBA-related things. Not much changes in any of these. So can I have a motion to accept the second readings of those policies? Mrs. Weiss, second by Mrs. Manuelito, all in favor? 5-0. We did resident remarks already. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Mrs. Manuelito first. Second by Mr. Tamio, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Long meeting, but very effective and fruitful.